It says only Luke's mic is working. It's all right. I'll just talk for the rest of the podcast.
Okay, they're saying it's coming down. Mike's fading out.
Yeah, my volume level is check, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Yeah, somebody can get my thing there.
Yeah. We could sit over here next to each other.
Actually, I noticed this on the last recording. Sorry, folks. Kyle's working on it. Let's give us a minute here.
No mistakes. There's Russell. Hello, okay. There's Apollo. You must Aztec wrestle Luke for it. It is the way. Aztec wrestle. Hey, speaking of Aztec wrestle, I was thinking I should have brought my Aztec whistle. I just I got a little partnership deal that I'm doing with a company who makes Aztec whistles in Mexico City, and they just sent me one that's like an authentic replica. That thing is scary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll go out on my balcony at our apartment complex and just blow that thing as loud as I possibly can.
Yeah, it's weird. It's crazy. Like every time we come in here, there's something else different wrong with the live show. It's wild.
It's not just you guys. I think it's everybody that tries to do stuff like this. Yeah. I was talking to Nerdrotic, and he was telling me, no matter what you do, no matter how professional you are, every single time before you go on a podcast, something will be messed up. So.
Yeah, that's fine if it's before.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. It is what it is.
And he does lots of live shows.
Yeah.
That's what happens during too.
Yeah.
Is there settings in OBS in there that you can?
It's tuned all the way up.
Yeah, I know that.
Some people are saying it's nothing. Maybe I should mute myself. Will you guys talk? What if they just all agreed in the pre-show chat to troll you guys?
That sounds fine. That's not what these people's. Listen, he just played it over his phone. There was no difference between Luke's audio and ours.
Hold on. We have to do this
I don't know
now.
what you guys are talking about.
Let's listen.
Yeah, what's the deal?
Maybe they're trolling. Somebody said don't ruin a good joke.
It still leads off.
Somebody said Luke is twice as loud. I am very close. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not working.
Hello. 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 Check, 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 check. Somebody says sounds normal now. Somebody said sounds good.
Well,
I can hear everyone fine.
all right, I'll stay for that's fine. Yeah, people are. So you guys are suggesting to restart? Just restarted the studio computer, right? So we figured it's restart. What's going on now?
So quiet.
Okay, I'll just be right on the mic.
Oh, that's
I'm
why.
reading the comments, but I don't know what's trolling and what's not.
Yeah. And what's behind and what's not.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Because some people are watching like 10 minutes in the past.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's right. So you guys are you're advising us to turn Luke down, but he is in the rest of the system. He's basically the same volume as us. So I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I'm talking right now, I'm the same as you.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right, cut all that out. This is why we don't go live. Okay, well, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, like, first of all, you went to Peru.
I
right?
did go to
You're
Peru.
about to go to Egypt, so that'll be cool to get. I have to get you back on when you come back from Egypt. But every time you've come here and been on the show, you've mentioned your mentor, Dr. Barnhart, and he was recently on Lex Friedman, which I listen to Lex. I haven't finished his episode. I'm like, I think 10 minutes from the end, but it was fantastic. So do you have thoughts about it? Like,
Yeah. So I actually have not yet listened to the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm just kind of at a whirlwind period, but I've listened to probably half of it
Okay,
so
yeah.
far. But you know, they're all topics that I've talked about with him so many times.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see. I don't know. It makes me very happy that I've talked about him so many times for so long. It's cool that he's finally on a platform like that, and then you guys, whose opinions I respect as well, listen to him, and then now you understand why I like the guy so much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's so much I could say about the guy. You know, he's got all the credibility in the world. He's a world-class Maya archaeologist and like a world-class person as well. Extremely selfless and has given so much time, has given so much of his time to me and investing in me. When at some points, you know, he had like every incentive not to. You know what I mean? And he could have picked any other kid, you know, to spend so much time with.
Yeah.
And invest so much in. I just feel really, really fortunate that I know the guy, and it's cool to see him kind of now be validated on a huge stage.
Yeah.
You know, and see hundreds of thousands of people, you know, get to see this guy that I admire so much. And it's been, you know, it's crazy. He is the very first. He's the very first big name academic that I reached out to while I was in college, and he and I met up in Austin for a breakfast one day, and he gave me like 30 minutes, and we ended up being there for 3 hours just talking about ancient history, and basically I was asking him, I was saying, you know, I don't want to go and be a regular archaeologist because I don't know, that just wasn't my calling. I needed to do something kind of creative and something that was more what I wanted to do, where I could just focus on areas that I'm interested in. Because in archaeology, you're kind of like an actor. You know, you just take the jobs that you can get, and you know, if you want to study ancient Greece, you know, there's a path for you, but it's really hard to get in there. And who knows, you're not going to be excavating, you know, at Athens or Thebes or something like that. You know, you're going to be in some goat pen, you know, some 2,000-year-old goat pen.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know, that didn't seem like a very realistic.
Yo, what's up, Mikazi? I'm good. How are you?
Engaged, or we were about to be engaged.
Thank you for being
She's
here.
been in dental school, and so I couldn't just go off in this career when she's off in her career. You know, it wasn't going to work for our relationship. So I reached out to him, and how many TV shows and documentaries he'd been on, and he'd made a career out of leading, tours for people, or leading.
I'm doing well, thank you.
People on tours,
Yo,
being on
YW.
TV and being like a archaeology communicator. And so I wanted to meet him and ask him, is there a route for somebody like me
Yeah.
who wants to be in the media side of archaeology, and I guess be a communicator of archaeology or ancient history? And that was just me picking his brain, and we just clicked. He was the only person like that I talked to. I had my professors, but I didn't really click with them, and I didn't even know them personally because I graduated after my freshman, or after my sophomore year, I guess. So I never knew my professors in person. So he's the only guy that I've ever known personally, and it just clicked. It could have been anybody else. I could have met somebody who,
Glad you're here.
totally against the whole pseudo-archaeology crowd. And I'm not saying that Dr. Barnard is really into that, but I'm just saying I could have met somebody that was a lot more closed-minded and a lot less classy.
Yeah.
But I met a guy who's just so considerate of other people and has really shown me that is a route to take, and there is a higher road there. So yeah, it's just I feel lucky to know the guy.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you two are getting to see the guy that I've known for the last few years.
Yeah, I was really impressed with, like I said, I'm close to the end, but not quite there. But I just got to the part actually where he brings up his, because Lex is asking him, like, well, what about these giant stones in Peru? And he's like, well, I think they might have used acid. And I'm like, oh man, like, this is great, But yeah, obviously his knowledge about Mesoamerica, South America, all this stuff is fantastic. They're going through all this the whole time, and he's obviously making comparisons to other ancient cultures around the world, but he's really speaking in depth about these mysterious cultures here. He brings up he's like, these ancient sites that no one has really, like, were found a long time ago, but nobody has done a lot of work on them because, like, they're like, oh, there's no ceramics, there's no gold here, like, this is boring, and they leave. And he's like, but it's 5,000 or 6,000 years old. We need to look at this, right? What do you mean there's no ceramics? This is pre-pottery, right? Really, really fascinating. So I love the way that he addresses the mysteries, admits they're mysterious. He actually says, he's like, I kind of like the world to be mysterious, otherwise it'd be boring. I completely agree with that. He's very, and like a lot of people have said already, he was just very gentlemanly in his handling of the Graham Hancock questions, right? He's like, I met the guy, I like him, he's got his own theories, but he's more asking what could be, whereas the science that we're doing is asking what do we know and what do we not know. Perfect way to address it. He's like, I don't necessarily agree with him, but he does great research. Fantastic. Like, this is how you do it. You can have a disagreement, like even a fundamental disagreement with somebody on scientific matters, but still get along. Like, this is I feel like he's this is like the whole royal philosopher sort of thing. Like, we're all gentlemen here, we're going to come together, we're going to discuss our ideas, but we all acknowledge that we're all working towards the same goal, right? Which is to try to better understand the world we live in. And we need crazy, weird ideas to really do that. But yeah, I was floored when he mentioned, like, I think they might have been melting or softening the stone. I'm like, holy shit, this is cool. This is really great.
I love that he's got some ideas of his own that aren't, accepted by the majority of academics. And I like that he's not afraid to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I also like that I feel like he does a good job of conveying the romance of the ancient world and the romance of archaeology. And he makes you can feel how much he loves it when he speaks about it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through in the best archaeology communicators. Like I've talked about, I've been so complimentary of Bob Breyer on y'all's show before.
Yeah.
When you listen to him talk, you can tell how much that guy loves Egypt. And he just sucks you in when you listen to him.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Barnard's very much the same way.
Yeah, the passion, like, you can feel it, and like it kind of draws you in. Yeah, I totally agree.
And it feels so opposite of this modern trend where you feel like some of these archaeologists have a contempt against their own field, and that they don't think there's anything interesting about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
It's this weird thing where they seem like they're disinterested in their own field.
Yeah.
And that all this, it's like romance has been painted as this colonial style of thinking, where archaeology can't be romantic because the romance period of archaeology was so tied in with the colonial imperial period of archaeology. So you can't be romantic about archaeology,
Right.
because that's
Right.
not that's not PC.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one part I think. I mean, obviously one thing that really struck me is he pointed out he was saying his mentor, or one of his mentors, I guess, and of course
Linda Sheely.
Yeah,
Probably,
who was instrumental in decoding the Mayan text, right? And I was just like, yeah, I see, I've read about this person before in this whole project, and he was just like, I was very fortunate to be, a part of this, and I was just like, yeah, dude, that's who you, if you're gonna specialize in this, that's who you want to learn from or whatever.
Another thing that just blows my mind is so Linda Sheely is probably who he was talking about there. He had another mentor as well, but I think Linda Sheely was the one he was closest with. And if you go to Half Price Books and you go through the archaeology section, which I'm sure plenty of the people watching here have done before, you'll see a book called A Forest of Kings. It's called A Forest of Kings by Linda Sheely, and it's a very, very popular book, and she's like world-renowned, world-respected Maya archaeologist, and she, mentored Dr. Barnhart, and she's just a monumental woman, and then he mentors me, and it's just like I have this kind of tangential connection to her. It's just I'm so lucky to be in the position that I am and to know this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. This kind of standing on the shoulders of giants thing, right? You're doing it. This is what it's about. And that's how science is supposed to work, which is the thing where you could really hear the passion was when he was telling the story of going into that cave. And he's like, there are these 10, 12,000 year old handprints on the walls. And he was like, I put my hand not touching them, but put them up close, and I could see that their hands were much smaller. But you're like standing there like somebody was here, because they dated the charcoal that the marks were made in. And he's like 10,000 years ago, and you're putting your hand up there, and you're just like, holy shit. You could hear this, this sort of this passion in his voice, and it's like, yeah, this is great. And of course, he mentions the scientific method, which I think he's correct. It is, and we've railed on this podcast multiple times about how the scientific method is about disproving, coming up with a hypothesis, and then at least naming a few ways where, like you say, if this is discovered, then this hypothesis is wrong, and then you try to, falsify it. And he's like, this is how science is supposed to work, and I think a lot of archaeology fails to do this. I mean, that's excellent. But, anyway, we don't have to keep talking about it, but it was a fantastic interview. I really put out because it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, not only do you get plenty of Mayan knowledge, Olmecs, Aztecs, Inca, and all these connections. He's talking Viracocha, the jaguar god, stuff that Luke has brought up about the Olmecs, this emergence of this fanged god, and like the rituals, the sacrifices, him talking about doing archaeology is just excellent. Yeah, so really good. Great point, Kyle.
So true.
Just kidding.
So you fixed the audio while we were talking?
Yeah, I think I got it working pretty good. I'm a little quieter than you guys now.
No, they're telling me to back off now. Are you guys sure?
Are we good?
No, everybody's. I slowly turned everyone up, so now they can all slowly turn their devices down.
Great.
Okay. We got two.
We did have some.
Two soups.
There you go.
From Clueless Chris, $20. Value for value beer monies. Woo! Blasting the TV, I can hear y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ed Foo.
This one's for you.
20 Australian bucks. Luke, need to thank you for the Bob Breyer Ancient Egypt lecture series. Awesome. Thanks to you mentioning Edwin, I have listened to all 3 of his great courses, South, Meso, and North America. Amazing. Barnhart's a legend.
He really is, and I totally agree with you, Ed Foo. I am so glad that you watched all of Bob Breyer's ancient Egypt lecture and you watched all of Dr. Barnhart's lectures, it's just even though they're more orthodox, body dive into the ancient world in a way that you can tell, like I said a minute ago, you can just tell how much they love it.
Yeah.
And they just go on. I mean, those courses are just hours and hours and hours and hours of this person that is so captivating to listen to, just diving into that world.
Yeah.
And it covers such a wide range of topics. I feel like it's such a good foundation for everyone who is into this world. You know, if you like the mysteries of ancient Egypt, just listening to a lecture like that once all the way through gives you such a solid foundation of at least the context around that world, and even if it's the things that happen later on, you know,
Sure.
The vast majority of the Egypt lecture takes place after the pyramids were built, or after
He's
he
doing New
addresses the
Kingdom.
pyramids. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes from 70,000 years ago in Egypt all the way up until, I think the last episode is the death of Cleopatra. So the majority of it takes place after he's addressed the pyramids. But it just gives you a picture of that world, you know, and you know, if you're going to visit ancient Egypt and you go to the Valley of the Kings, you know, it doesn't really have anything to do with a lot of the mysteries that we look into, but at least you know the importance of this. You know? And you get a picture of it, and it's the same thing for Mesoamerica.
Yeah, and like a lot of the stuff we're looking at in Egypt is just is our layers that are at the very bottom of this enormously thick cultural, you know, deposition. Basically, there's all this stuff, and you have to know what to look through to see the old stuff.
Yeah.
So it is good to know like the New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and of course the later periods as well, the Roman, Greek, you know, and all the way up to modern times. Like, what if people have been messing with these sites for a long time, and you're like basically having to peel back the layer, like what is the earliest thing we could see here? Yeah. And sometimes it's a little weird, you know, when you get all the way into the back of this New Kingdom temple, but you keep seeing these fragments of what are obviously older temples, and then there's broken flooring in one room, and you can see under the broken flooring are older, reused granite column bases, you know, and then all the way in the back of the temple in this dark cubbyhole is this granite artifact that's polished, and you're just like, I feel like they built this whole place around that thing.
Yeah.
Kind of it's a really strange experience. You're gonna love it.
Well, one other thing I should say, just addressing EdFu, those ancient American lectures as well on great courses. It's, you know, each of them are anywhere from like 20 to 50 lectures, and you know, while he does go into considerable depth on the Maya and the Aztecs and the Inca and the Olmecs, there's also all these other cultures in between that he touches on, like the Zapotecs, the Teotihuacan cultures, which are west of Teotihuacan, you know, on the western coast of Mexico, and just you know, all these places that most people will go through their whole lives without ever hearing about, and there's all kinds of little things in there where you go, oh wait, that is really interesting, and you know, most people will never talk about it. So anyways, can't recommend it enough, and I hope everybody watching goes.
I was impressed with his ability to say the hummingbird god's name. He just rattled it right on. I'm like, holy crap! I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually do
Come
that.
on, man. Like,
He
bro.
can't say Ollantay Tamba.
Like, bro.
Oh yeah.
He can't say that one, but those Mayan and the Aztec names, he's just like, oh yeah, this god. And I'm like, Jesus.
That's like on our first episode where we're like, that god.
Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah.
So, you were just in Peru.
Yep.
What was your impression?
Well, honestly, and as surprised as I am saying this, I am just curious as to how Egypt is going to stack up, because not only were the ancient sites in Peru amazing and mind-blowing, like I got some photos here that'll show. The stonework was insane, and the variety of the stonework was insane. But the scenery was just drop dead stunning. You know, I mean,
so the scenery in Egypt is yellow.
It has that what's like the movie, like the filter that they put over
Yes,
all
exactly.
the movies that take place in the desert, where it's,
There are plenty of Nile sites that are beautiful. You know, like Kamambo is right on the river. I don't know how much Nile travel you're gonna do.
I'm going there.
Okay.
Yeah, Colombo that has the crocodile museum.
Yeah.
So yeah, the people were amazing and the weather was just fantastic. I mean, we were at of course, you know, that's what you expect when you're at like 11,500 feet elevation in Cusco, but the weather was...
Egypt is also hot.
Yeah. So the weather was amazing every single day. The people were wonderful. So much mystery there, and it feels like a magical place when you're there.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the Maya world, I fell in love with Peru. It was like an alien world. You know, the nature that's there is not like any of the mountains are so much bigger, and the terrain of the mountains is different, and the wildlife that's there is different. You know, you've got these llamas and alpacas that are sitting up on the mountains, and then you've got this, I forget the name of it, but there's like this hybrid, untamable llama that lives at the highest elevations, that is this gigantic aggressive llama that will kill you. Yeah. And you could see him up on the mountaintops. There's these giant
animals that can kill you.
This is Luke's thing.
There are these horse-sized llamas, and then there's these jackrabbit-sized black squirrels that live down there. There's these squirrels that are like this big, and they're not scared of you. And the terrain is just so different, and the animals are like you've never seen before. Oh, the pigeons are everywhere. You know, they're not scared of you. Like all the pigeons are like so obese, you know, from all the people feeding them. And it's just it was awesome, guys. One of the craziest things. We'll get into the stonework. There's no way to convey it. When you guys go to Peru, what are the biggest mountains you've seen in person?
I don't know.
The Tetons?
Tetons?
When we drove past.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't measure them.
Yeah. They were really big.
Well, so these were the biggest mountains I've ever seen in person. And when you guys go to Peru,
Come on, what?
when you guys
I
are in
can't
Peru,
believe we
when you're
missed that
driving
third
from
cam. Like,
Cusco
what?
To the train that takes you to Machu Picchu, look up at every single mountain. Every single mountain in the Sacred Valley is terraced from the bottom all the way to the top.
Yeah, that's wild.
Every single mountain.
Yeah.
Every single mountain is terraced from the bottom all the way to the top. At the end of the trip, the megalithic stonework had like gone to the back of my mind, and I was absolutely blown away that every single mountain from the bottom to the top was turned into a farm.
Yeah.
And it's stone terracing. So you know they're cutting out the mountainside and placing stone in to build these farms.
Retaining walls.
Yeah. Building retaining walls.
That's insane.
Absolutely blew my mind.
I guess it was Google Earth or some where you can see all the lines in the mountains. I'm just like, how?
It's not possible to comprehend until you are driving through the Sacred Valley for like 3 hours, and it just doesn't end.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
And you realize.
Come on, man, like, bro.
Dr. Barnard talks about it in the podcast. You know, the Aztec Empire, they ruled and conquered.
All right, I'm ready. Here we go, boys. I'm ready.
It's
happening.
And by enslaving people
And girls,
and
it's
sacrificing
happening.
thousands of people.
It's happening today. I can feel it.
And the rest of the Mesoamerican cultures
I'm locked in.
turned on them along with Cortez. Or helped
We've
Cortez
purified our
take down the
soul.
Aztecs.
We've
But
removed
in
all the
Mexico,
ads for the
they
viewers.
were feeding
Yes, that's me. What's up?
either.
They'd roll up on
What's
your
up, brother? I know you have
5,000
turbo, but I
views,
now
and
I have no ads now.
100,000 and be like, hey, so
I'm
you
going-
guys want to
I'm
join the
like the
empire?
purity.
Shall we escort you to
I
the
purified my
exit?
soul
Exactly.
And if they joined, then they would
Famous last
show up
words.
this enormous workforce, build terraces,
of
build
a
grain
golden eye
silos,
speedrunner.
whatever.
Yeah,
And then everyone would have plenty
dude,
of
we're so
food. They
close,
would have
man.
feast
Dude,
days
we're
every
like,
month 'cause it was so much
dude, we're
surplus.
locking in, man.
Everyone was
We've
fed.
had like a lot of. I don't know how long you've been here. We've had a lot of fourth camera hits.
The food production comes from the Sacred Valley. You know, they
We're
had
good,
these
bro. How are you, man?
farms there
You at
that
work?
were feeding millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
You chilling from work?
Yeah, you said that at the height.
So now
the
people with
estimate's 10
mobile
million.
can watch my streams
That's
from work
amazing.
again.
Yeah, and that, I think
Before
that's
people
the
were mobile, were
conservative
like,
number, 'cause
we're
I was
fucked. They
just
couldn't
about
watch
to
my.
say
Oh, my
20
stream was
Yeah.
unwatchable.
And that, dude, that's not
Nice,
even
dude.
considering we don't
Nice,
even
buddy.
actually
Congrats,
know
homie.
how far the Inca Empire expanded into the Amazon. You know, because the Amazon, it's growing up.
Hope it
the
stopped
east
raining.
side of the
It's gonna be
Andes,
dry
up
season
to
soon in
Machu
Miami,
Picchu.
dude.
You know, Machu Picchu
Might be
was
dry season
discovered
already.
like 110 years ago. It was completely eaten by the jungle, and we know that there are cities further east of there.
Yeah.
You know, they were looking
Can't wait.
for Vilcabamba for so long, which was,
Another month.
you know, they say that Machu Picchu
Yeah,
was
I remember.
this, kind of
It rained for like 10
retreat,
days
like a
in
hidden
November
haven.
of
Yeah, it was this hidden
2021,
haven.
beginning of November.
And then
And that's when I
the
got
Spanish
my-
started taking over the Maya world.
That's when I studied for my
I don't know
life
if it's
insurance
Pachacuti,
exam.
it may have
And then
been
after those
one
10
of the
days, it
kings
was
after him. He
fucking
moved
sunny
further
forever.
east,
Not forever,
still
but
in
for a
the
long
mountains,
time.
But in where the Andes meets the Amazon, and he built a city called Vilcabamba. And
Such a good
and
time
then
in
they
Miami,
find
December.
that decades after
December
they found Machu
and
Picchu.
March and
But
April.
there are definitely other
December and
cities
March.
in the jungles out there. Because
October and
there
November are
Inca
pretty
roads,
amazing
like,
too.
Kind of like I was talking to you guys before, how there's the Maya sock bays that go through the jungle. Well, the Inca roads are these big megalithic cyclopean stones that are laid in the ground,
Yeah.
and they're just permanent, you know. And so those roads just fade into the
Even the
Amazon.
second half of February, it's already hot.
Damn it.
There's some cool stuff out there. So it just the impression was that.
Where should I go to look up this place where the terracing is?
Oh
Google
man,
it.
I
It's
don't.
all along the Sacred Valley.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I type in
Oh wow,
Sacred Valley?
cool man.
You just go, you can see it.
You could do Ollantaytambo.
Yeah, I had an
Cusco
amazing
might
time
be
in
a
Miami in
little bit-
October of
there's some
2021.
terracing there,
When I
but it was
arrived, I
really,
arrived
really
like
noticeable
few
between
days before
Cusco
Halloween.
and Ollantaytambo.
Oh my god.
Pisac. Look that up.
Okay.
Pisac.
Let me put it down.
We
Dude,
should
I
take a
spent a
break, you
week
can
at
find it.
Fairwinds. Fairwinds?
Yeah.
Fair,
And
yeah,
then we'll come
Fairwinds. I'll type it.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good.
Fairwinds South
Make sure
Beach.
the music's not too loud.
It's like an apartment hotel. So I got like a 1-bedroom apartment suite with a full kitchen and stove and fridge, full-size fridge and living room. Bro, it was insane. For like $100 a night. I stayed there for a week. It was amazing. Thanks, brother. With a pool. I did a pool stream. Sailor Curse and Toad were in that. Who else? I think Real Pink Elephants was there. Man, those were like the best days of my. And then my girlfriend arrived like on Halloween. Oh my god, it was the best. It was the best. She stayed for like a week. It was amazing. Went to the beach every day. It was the best. This music is so fucking loud. Fuck, man.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
So yeah, this is.
I mean, you can see them all here.
Yeah, so you can see right there to the right.
Yeah.
All
Sorry
of
about
that is terracing that is currently maintained.
Maintained terrace.
But if you go a little bit down from there and you start looking around the sides of the mountains,
Yeah, you can see it over here.
and you start looking real close, go straight to the left from here. Now zoom
Yeah.
in. You can see more of the terracing there.
Yeah.
You see those lines that are going
Yeah.
up and down the sides?
Yep.
And look, it goes all the way. Actually goes. The closer you look, the more you look, the more you realize it's going all the way up the mountain.
Yeah.
And anybody here, you can go on Google Earth and look up Peru's Sacred Valley. Look on every single mountain, and just if you think you don't see a terrace, just look harder.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at this. What you're looking at right now, the scale of that farmland just covers the entire Sacred Valley, which takes 3 hours to drive from one end to the other, and then 3 hours to drive from the other end to the other end. Just, I mean, look at that.
those lines.
It's a whole mountain turned into farmland. And I mean, I just didn't realize that there was something that was going to impress me more than the megalithic, precise granite stonework that I was going to see there. Look at that. It's going all the way up the mountain. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane. Oh my gosh. When you guys go to Machu Picchu, you got to climb up Huayna Picchu, which is, when you're looking at the picture of the city, you see the city here and there's the peak up behind it.
Yeah.
That is Huayna Picchu. These guys had terracing at the very tip top of that, where you're standing on the terrace and it's just like 6,000 foot from the edge of it. I mean, these guys, Dr. Barnhart was saying, he's like, yeah, you didn't want to be an Inca guy and have a fear of heights.
Yeah.
You weren't going to be employed for very long.
Yeah,
I mean, look
that.
at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Hey, thanks for being here.
I've spent a long time cruising around the Sacred Valley with Google Earth, and yeah, these are
by a lot of these terracings, sometimes if there was bedrock on the terracing, they would build a home into the mountainside, and so you could go walk up and down those mountains, and the likelihood is if you just committed to doing it, full time, you would eventually walk into an Inca home or something that no one has stood in almost 1,000 years or something like that. There are also caves up where you see where you see the rock facing on the mountains. And in those caves, they have the mummies in there. Peruvian mummies that they would take these pilgrimages when one of their family members would die, and they'd carry them up the mountain, place them inside the mountain. And there are still thousands of mummies.
Okay, maybe my B presses are getting better.
In the Sacred Valley, just
That was like
untouched.
one of the weakness. That was one of the bottlenecks, but it's getting better.
So
See, that's 14.
different. I've been around the Maya world, but most of the Maya world is flat. That I've been to. There's in the Guatemalan highlands, it's got mountains, but most of the Maya world that I've been to is very flat, and you're kind of just looking at things straight in front of you, and it's just going to be a city. But in the Inca world, man, it's like there could be cities up on top of all these jungle-covered mountains that we're not aware of, with stonework that can rival what's in Egypt, and there could be caves underneath them that are holding bodies with treasure troves from 1,000 to 1,000 to 3,000, 4,000 years ago. There was so much variety there. It was like stepping into a world I've never been before.
I think Egypt is like that too. Like everywhere you go in Egypt, you realize there's a lot of stuff that still hasn't been worked on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like it is completely unknown.
Yeah.
There are shafts that are just full of rubble that no one has. There's no record of anybody ever excavating it all the way out. There are entrances to things that are gated off. It's just, but yeah, that's wild. That, up in the Andes, there could just be stuff that no one has found yet since the Inca left it.
Oh well, I mean, Dr. Barnhart, I've asked him so many times. I'm like, so you think there's another Machu Picchu out there? And he's like, yeah. Well, there is. There is more out there. And that just, I said it before about the Maya world. That haunts me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I guess the other thing that the elephant in the room is the stonework. Like, it was my first time seeing megalithic, precise stonework in person, and honestly, I was like, I had some of the guys that were on a group with us. I was looking at them. I was like, man, this is some of the best stonework of all time. Nobody even today builds buildings like this.
Right.
When you're in the my mind's blanking on it right now because I'm so used to Maya words that Inca words right now are stumping me. But there's the main chapel in the center of Cusco.
Coricancha?
The Coricancha, yes. And that they have basically built the building to cover up the main center of the Coricancha, which is just the center of the Inca realm. And the stonework there is just absolutely massive. I probably have a couple photos of it here, but it's the iconic trapezoidal niches and windows that you see with the.
Do you want to get into these?
Sure.
Do you want to use the mouse?
Yeah. We can do that.
Dang.
Yeah, I'll grab it.
I may not have something of the core concha here, but I can. I probably have something that's basically.
You may have. And did you connect these to your? Okay. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
Okay, so here is actually. Oh, I'm sorry. So here is part of the core concha that is actually in a hotel, or I should say, this is like right outside of the core concha, but it's just part of a hotel. And those granite blocks, you can see that one of them right above the concierge has two little nubs on it, and a bunch of these blocks have nubs on them. And I mean, it's been said into oblivion, but you cannot fit a hair between these stones. It just the stonework is absolutely perfect. And one of the things that I thought was so cool about Cusco, and you guys should spend an evening doing this, just walk around the city and pop your head into all of the buildings that have, a wooden facade on the outside. Just pop your head on the inside and look at the interior of the wall, and the ancient city is there.
The paint.
Yeah. They painted the stone. Can you believe that?
All right, we got to bring them some masking
But look,
tape and show
these
it.
are small blocks, but look, they still have nubs.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting.
Yeah, it's really strange.
They're totally for lifting, bro.
It is so
But, I mean,
weird.
you can just pick that block up. So what do you need nubs for?
Yeah. I mean, you so many of these blocks, one or two guys could pick them up. So what was really interesting was I did a deep dive. I walked throughout the entire city of Cusco over the course of about 11 hours in total, and Dr. Barnhart and I we're actually going to do a project. I'm going to go back to Cusco for probably a month or so, and I'm going to walk every single street and every alleyway and walk in every building, and I'm going to map every single ancient wall in the entire city. That doesn't exist. And so in sort of prepping for that while I was there, I really got a good look at how the walls are made, and or not how they're made, but what the stones look like today, because you can, in so many places you can't actually see inside the wall and see, okay, are they just perfect on the exterior and then they're jagged on the inside? How does that work? And so there were probably a dozen places throughout the city where I was able to get different glimpses of how the stones were cut. I was able to see a corner that had fallen down, and so there's some exposed rock on the right side, and maybe the top wouldn't be exposed, but I could go to some other place on the other side of the city. I mean, this is a big city. This takes me like an hour to walk from one side to the other, and the entire city is built with these, this just monumental stonework. And so, I would walk from one side of the city to the other and put little clues together as to, what this stonework looked like. And this is actually if you click right there on I'm sorry. Okay, so
Is it upside down? That's good. Okay.
So here's another example. So throughout the city of Cusco, there is very rarely stonework that is, I say, monumental stonework that is different than what you're looking at right now. This is imperial style, so it's not uniform, but rectangular stone blocks that are perfectly cut on at least 4 sides of the exterior facing, and they're cut perfectly to fit with all the blocks around them. And so the vast majority of the city is built with stone like this. The only other times on the Temple of the Moon, you will see polygonal cyclopean granite blocks that we'll see here in a minute. And then
this is you could do a side-by-side comparison with this in the Osirian. It just looks exactly the same. That's why I was asking you what kind of stone this is.
This is granite. Yeah.
Okay.
This is
Because I thought that
gray
the walls, I thought the walls of the Osirian were granite as well, but they're quartzite,
Yeah.
and that's what
Oh,
that
really?
looks just
But the
like
pillars
this.
and
The pillars are granite.
Are granite, yeah.
But the walls of the interior, they're not exterior walls.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. We're freaking locked
yeah,
in.
They look like,
Let's do it.
They look the same.
as far as I'm aware, and the archaeologists that I was with there, you know, the people actually work for the Ministry of Culture in Cusco. They say it's gray granite.
No, that
and
was
so
it.
The
That was
vast
the run.
majority of the city. It's this huge city, and every single building in Cusco has this imperial architecture in it. Like, just the sheer quantity of it was mind blowing. But I'll say most of it is this imperial style. There's a couple of places, maybe just the Temple of the Moon, where you see the large cyclopean stuff. I can exit.
So,
sorry.
Jonathan Frost is asking if these are unfinished. And I'm curious about that too. Are there any faces where it's been flat?
At Machu Picchu, there's some flat ones. They've been flattened, but I don't know
Not
about
in
Cusco.
Cusco. Yeah. In Cusco, it is always pillowed like this.
So it may be technically finished, like this is complete and this is how they intended it, but they also have examples of like
Yeah.
a finish work
yeah,
that
yeah,
flattens
yeah.
it out.
Like
But
I
you can
saw,
see where they worked in all the joins.
Mhm.
You know, they worked that stone right to the join there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like, you know, there's just a definite.
Another good question from Earth Tribe is what's on the other side of the walls? Like when you're looking at a wall like this, how do you find out? Can you
Yes,
go find
yes.
the other
So-
side?
Okay, so that's kind of what I was getting to. So I walked all around the city and documented some examples of where I could see the other sides of the blocks.
No.
And so what I noticed was that it was really tough to get photos that adequately. I'm going to make a diagram at some point. But what I ended up finding out was that the blocks are not cut square. They're they're basically slanted. So you have the exterior face, but the exterior face is actually slanted inward to, you know, maybe 15 degrees. And then everything else is cut flat. So the block is like tilted like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the left and right sides are also tapered in on the inside. And so when you stack these blocks up, the wall leans in like this, and there's a little bit of tapered space between every single block on the left and right side. Does that make sense? So there's a little triangular gap between them, and they would take this llama fat and this red clay glue, and they would stuff it in that triangular space. And so Dr. Barnhart and I were just theorizing, because there's not a lot of studies on, you know, why exactly is that, and he thinks that it was like cartilage, kind of like
It can move. Yeah.
it could move, like it could cause the wall to almost
Flex.
breathe
Yeah.
during an earthquake. And he also thought that, well, if all the blocks, so they're only touching on the exterior, but they're also cut perfectly flat on the inside. And he thought that if an earthquake was massive enough, which there was one that somehow they're able to calculate that it was like a magnitude 8 or 9 earthquake in 1650, and that there was another one at the same magnitude in 1950, and it just knocked down the whole Spanish city. But everything was still sitting there. All the Inca stuff was
All
still
the
sitting there
imperial stuff is
perfectly.
still there. Yeah.
And so what he thinks is that if all the blocks were touching and a shockwave went through the building, it could shatter and crumble some of those blocks.
Yeah.
But that fat and that red clay glue between the blocks allowed them to breathe and move.
Who was doing this
Shit.
type of construction?
Well, I mean, they say that.
So you're telling me that this wall is that type of construction?
Yes, that wall. Yeah.
So on the back side of it, it's all gaps between.
There are triangular gaps filled with red clay mud llama fat that acts as a glue between the blocks. That
How
allows
deep
them
do
to-
those cracks go?
They're probably each block is about a foot, I would say.
The crack goes in that far.
Yeah. It starts from the very outer edge all the way to the back. They're about a foot deep.
Wow.
And some blocks are bigger than others, and you know that isn't always true for. Can I pull up another?
Yeah. So you go down through the right corner. Get down here. Yeah, you're down there now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it. Do I just click here? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go back.
Yeah. I have another example. Okay, so here we go. So here's that polygonal. There may have been a photo that didn't go through.
The fat cat.
Yeah, there may have been a photo that didn't go through. Here's an example at Machu Picchu. So this is at the Temple of the Sun, is what they call it, and you can see that this is imperial style, but this is much more monumental than what you see at Cusco. And so those blocks that are kind of falling apart, that's definitely from an earthquake, but it's showing you just how well built these are. These blocks also taper in.
So you're telling me that these faces these mating faces don't touch all the way back?
No, they don't.
So?
Not, at least not on every example, and not on most of the examples that I saw. There was some intentionally like a triangular space between the blocks where something could be put between them.
I'm gonna have to check your observations when I get
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna say I don't see any fat in there, bro.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. Most
it
of
wouldn't
them,
last, yeah.
Yeah, on most of them it doesn't exist, but you can put your fingers sometimes between the blocks, and you pull your finger out, and there's oil on your finger. And
But look at those megaliths at the bottom. This is the thing, that this question about is that from older stuff?
well, and if you look,
because it doesn't even look the same, and it doesn't look like it belongs.
But it
with
looks
that
like
wall.
It looks like it was worked with the same type of tool.
It does.
You guys see the nubs on the bottom there? Now,
I don't see any nubs.
Now to give you guys an idea of just how big that is, because they have it roped off. You can't actually walk straight up to that and crouch in front of it.
Of course.
That block.
What?
Right
How did I
there,
miss him? I
that
can't believe I
block
missed
right
him.
there, I failed to say how big it is.
Yeah.
It's just
It's massive.
the best way I can say it is I saw it and easily knew that the only thing that I know of that can be bigger than that is the pillars at the Osirion.
Yeah.
That's how big that thing is. It's got to be more than 10 feet long, and then it's probably 4 feet tall or so.
So those 4 blocks on the top of it are like 4 feet, like those.
Yeah. So I would say the block has got to be longer than. It's got to be about 10 feet long.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, give us an idea of the size of those 4 sitting on top.
Okay,
of it.
those 4.
Yeah.
They're probably each of them are about this big, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's probably that's going to be 12 feet.
To 12 feet.
Sure. And just so impressive. Go to the photo in front of it or behind it. There's actually larger stones. There you go. Okay, look really closely. The entire bottom half of that wall is one stone. And this is granite. This is all white.
Look at this side cut. It's got the curve in. Like it looks like there was a block that fit there, or at least it intended to be more wall, right?
Sure,
and it's got the twist. It isn't a straight flat side. It's got there. It's very.
It's not tapering down, right? It's twisting away.
Yeah. It's twisting away. Yeah.
And do you see how you can see the little scoops in there?
There was a giant nub going across the middle.
Or was there a floor here?
Could be a floor, yeah.
That butted up against this wall, maybe.
And then look in the stone. There's those 2 blocks that are shoved into the stone. I mean, look, how weird is that?
That's incredible. I love this photo.
And you can see so many scoop marks there.
Yeah.
And that is just amazing.
And you're telling me they shoved fat behind this giant rock? Come on.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I know at Cusco there are at Cusco and Sacsayhuaman there are examples where you can see the little red fat clay in there.
That's interesting.
But you actually, you know what?
And you can see at the top there, you see the stylistic similarities in these like tapered alcoves. So in that, what was it, the hotel wall you showed us, they have the same.
Yep.
They're these trapezoids or whatever, very similar. And it does look like a later, well, I don't know if I could say later, but it does look like a slightly different style. Look at all that llama fat, Luke. $20.
Giant angry llama fat.
So yeah, it was just
This right here was just mind blowing, and what was even more amazing was that I was just standing on top of the mountain at Machu Picchu and thinking like, the fact that there is something up here that rivals what you see in Egypt on top of this giant mountain, and there's they say that these blocks were quarried, basically where they stand, and you can see granite quarries at Machu Picchu, but still, I mean they had to pull these from where the granite quarry is, 100 yards away, and get these here and then cut them so precisely. And they had to get the entire workforce up on top of the mountain. It's just
they cut the top of the mountain off to make a.
You know what's amazing? 60% of the architecture at Machu Picchu is under the ground.
What?
60% of it is underground. Yep, they actually just unearthed a new megalith at Machu Picchu today. When I was there was a tent there, and they were saying the official story was that they were I don't even know, they were digging this because they're always worried about like the next earthquake is going to split the mountain in half, and like both sides of the city are just going to fall off the mountain. And Dr. Barnhart and I are like, the city has been there for a very long time. And whoever built it certainly knew what they were doing and how to build architecture that could, sustain earthquakes. So, but anyways, they ended up finding they ended up exhuming more these giant megalithic stones from the center little plaza at Machu Picchu. And
Man,
just
the back
happened
boost
today.
is so bad.
So,
The back
yeah,
boost is so bad,
just
man.
Absolutely
Sorry.
mind-boggling
Sorry.
that they were able to do this. Another example that I'd like to show
Sorry
you
about
guys
that.
of the monumental stonework that's here is, let's go. So I sent you guys this. So this is really interesting, and anyone who is going to go to Machu Picchu, you try to find this little alley. I don't know how to explain it. When you get to the far end of Machu Picchu, at the bottom of Huayna Picchu, you will see this. You'll see this recreation of what an Inca-style home would have looked like. This little alleyway is right next to that. So as I walk through this alleyway, you can see these. You can see this stone wall that's here to the left, and you can see another one up on top of this staircase to the right. Those cuts in that stone, we sat there and looked at that for a good long while, and right there, and then to the left as well. Yes, right there. So those cuts through the stone, Dr. Barnhart's been here, I don't know how many times over the last 30 years or so, and he thinks, and there's some other archaeologists there that think, and this is kind of an out there idea, but
Come on, bro.
that the Inca or whoever, because there's also there's a culture. I even asked the archaeologists there. They said that there was a culture living at Machu Picchu before the Inca ever arrived, at least dating back to 700 BC. So, anyways, what Dr. Barnhart's idea is that these stones right here have these artificial, pretty obvious when you're there, and then you look at other stones that are all around Machu Picchu. None of them quite look like this, and it's like you're walking through this alleyway where these stones go. So this stone right here on the right, see how there's no deep divots in it and cuts in it? Yeah. There's nothing like that. And so the stones that are standing next to me as I'm taking this photo, to my right and left, they're all basically untouched. They just look like, a regular, I think these might be granite, but they're just regular stone outcroppings. And as you go forward, they get more and more cuts in them. And as you
This is mountain rock, right? This is gonna be granite of some kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and as you keep walking through this little alleyway, these cuts get more defined, and then all of a sudden they turn into. See if I can go. Yeah. It's right or left of here. So, and then the outcropping turns into this style of stone before you know it. You almost have to look really closely. But those boulders fade into these blocks, and then these blocks eventually turn into the stone walls of Machu Picchu. And so the idea, at least what Dr. Barnhart interprets, is that they are showing that Machu Picchu is like a gift from the gods, or the gift from the earth, and that
from the living rock.
Yeah, and that the city is like born out of the mountain,
Yeah,
and that is
dude.
literally coming from the mountain. It's something that can really only be conveyed in person. As you're walking through it, it's very obvious that that's where they're doing it. It's like boulders that get these cuts that go through them, and then the cuts turn into the blocks, and then the blocks turn into the cellular style walls, and all of a sudden you're in the city. And it's really amazing. It's like a piece of public art, you know. It's really, really cool. And so another thing about what you're looking at right here is this is cellular polygonal stonemasonry. So there's so many different types. So I was showing you guys, there's the imperial style, which is the square granite stone blocks that you see all throughout Cusco. A step up from that is cellular polygonal, which is what we'll see at the Temple of the Moon. That's the 12-sided stone. That's the one that's like the most impressive. So that's cellular polygonal. But then you have megalithic polygonal, which is at Sacsayhuaman with the gigantic 20-foot tall stones that weigh as much as like 3 or 4, jets. And then from there you also have cellular, which is to the top right of here. It's that, but on a smaller scale. And then you have polygonal cellular, which is like this. And then you've got, I think it's called Hananpacha.
Yep.
Which is like your,
rock cut.
yeah, which is your rock cut. And,
Yeah.
and then you've got, you've basically got your rubble and mortar.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing that the diversity of stonework here is, it's just, I just haven't ever really been anywhere where there's so many different types of stonemasonry. It's
Yeah.
just,
So does that
Mind
strike you as like different cultures possibly, or do you think that it could be just different artisans or whatever,
well,
different styles? 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, you've been all through, Central America, looking at pyramids and cities and everything, and the stone types there, limestone,
yeah, they don't.
and it's all sort of done in the same way.
Yeah, in Mesoamerica, there's really no doubt who did.
Oh my God,
who built
man.
the pyramids out there, because you look in the Maya world, it's all that gray limestone, they're all, most of the blocks are close to the same size. I mean, they do erect these gigantic stelae.
And the statues.
Yeah, but it's all so similar, and there's really no question that it's all one
And this is
culture.
over thousands of years, right?
In
Thousands
the
of
Maya
years of
world?
constructing.
Yeah. At least 2,500 years.
Yeah.
Of continuous construction, and so
So that's what's odd about this.
Ain't going around for 150.
so
So they had 3 different distinct styles that they, it's like, why
Yeah,
did they
yeah.
choose-
Maybe a little longer than that. I can't remember. How
yeah. So so the Inca Empire itself is it reigns for about 150 years, but then you have the Kingdom of Cusco, which was around
Yeah.
before that. Now here's the thing about South America is that I don't know that all South American archaeologists, or that most archaeologists would agree with this, but the way that again, I reference him so much, but the way that Dr. Barnhart and I will talk about it is that if you look at it through this lens, that the Inca are standing on top of 4,000 years of continuous history, probably more than that.
Yeah.
4,000 years of continuous history, from Corral Supe culture to Chavin de Huantar, to Nazca, Paracas, this Peruvian, or this West
Andean.
Coast Andean culture. It's 4,000 years of history, and basically when the Inca take over, so you have the Wari Empire that tries to take over all of the Andes, and they end up failing, and then the Inca come in right behind them. Like, the Wari was kind of laying the foundation for this cultural empire over the Andes. And then, according to the traditional archaeologists, is that Tiwanaku is built sometime around a 1,000 years ago or so. And so the only thing about Tiwanaku is it's kind of the same question there. Is like, you look at this Inca stonework, well, where did that come from? And it's, a lot of people point to, well, they must have gotten it from Tiwanaku because there's so many similarities. But then at Tiwanaku, there isn't really anything before that.
Yeah.
It
Just shows up.
Yeah, really, it just
Yeah.
shows up. And Tiwanaku, some of that architecture, the H blocks and the blocks that have the patterns in it that are multiple levels. It's just, where did that come from? It doesn't matter how far back you push it in time or how you rationalize it. At Tiwanaku, it appears out of nowhere, and it's not inspired by anything. So the rationale is that the Inca were able to do it because they're standing on top of 4,000 years of Andean history, and they.
So why is the exact same style in Egypt? That's that.
I have
You know
no
what I mean?
idea. I have
There's
no
so
idea.
many different ways to cut stone and build with stone.
Yeah.
The Romans built a lot of stuff with stone, and it doesn't look like this sort of, these clay molds.
Mhm.
I mean, I understand why people go down the geopolymer route with this, because it literally, that's what it looks like. It looks like it was just molded out of clay.
Yeah, it is really perplexing because when I dial in and I think about South America, I get it. It's 4,000 years of continuous the terracing that they were able to do and the vast empire that they had, and then you even have Spanish who see some of these guys building just the imperial style stonework that's in Cusco, and then the Spanish. There's a quote from Cieza de Leon in the 1500s, and he says that they're cutting these blocks, and he's talking about the imperial style blocks. And he says they're cutting the blocks using almost nothing more than stone and metal tools and something like unknown generations of ancient wisdom or something like that. That's basically there's a Spaniard that sees them making that. At the same time, a Spaniard living at the same time also documents them trying to move around some of the blocks at Sacsayhuaman, and they can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this mystery where it's like, okay, we have reports of people living then saying that they were able to make the blocks, the imperial blocks of Cusco, but they can't move the blocks at Sacsayhuaman. And it's the same culture.
Yeah.
And even if Sacsayhuaman was built 100 years before the Spanish showed up, they wouldn't have lost the ability to move those blocks. You know, so there's this big
I think that
question
one of
mark
those
there.
attempts kills a bunch of people.
I believe that you're right.
I mean,
yeah.
that's it might be a myth, but like the story is that he's going to move one of these blocks, and they start dragging it, and it like slips and falls, and it kills a bunch of people because it goes down back down where they were dragging it up.
Yeah, it seems like I'm familiar with the same story. One thing I wasn't prepared for when I started buying primary sources on the Inca world was that it's like this deep in Spaniards that were there writing about the Inca world.
Yeah.
There's a lot to know.
There's also that
Very little of it has to do with the stonework.
Yeah. There was one quote, I think, I don't remember where I read this. Maybe Graham referenced it. I think the guy was, he was the son of an Incan woman and a Spaniard.
Yes. Yeah.
And he documented a whole bunch of stuff. He was going around trying to collect his heritage or whatever, and he was talking about the stonework at Sacsayhuaman and, saying that, like, even in his time, they don't really know how it was done, and that it looks like the work of demons. Like, he's like, what man did this, right? It's like,
So that's
almost supernatural in aspect.
Yeah, I forget the name because it's this it's a very colonial Spanish name.
Yeah.
But the book is called Royal Commentaries.
Yeah, that's it. Royal
of the
Commentaries.
Incas, or Royal Commentaries of the Conquest of the Incas. It's something like that. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And so I'm now at this point where I think you read Cieza de Leon, his account of them making the blocks at the Coricancha or around Cusco, and you say, okay, there's a guy saying that they're making the imperial style stone.
Yeah.
There's also accounts of them trying to move the blocks at Sacsayhuaman, and they can't do it. And then we have nothing from Machu Picchu because the Spanish didn't know that Machu Picchu existed.
Right.
So how there were Inca people living out at Machu Picchu? You know what I mean? They would have known that it was there. And if you look at Cusco from Machu Picchu on a map, you would think like, okay, maybe they're so far away. Machu Picchu's off in the Andean Amazon jungle. It's so far away, maybe it was just out there and they were able to live in this haven away from the Spaniards. And that could be true, but the problem is that wasn't far for the Inca because it was recorded at contact that if the emperor of the Inca Empire living in Cusco, wanted fish for dinner. And he said it in the morning, he would have it by night. And because they had sprinters that would sprint through the mountains, and so yeah, I mean, you have Cusco that is, I looked it up, I think it was 350 miles off of the coast, and if he woke up at sunrise, he could have fish by dinner. So it was like that. And just 20 years ago, they had these marathon runs from Cusco to Machu Picchu, and a Peruvian guy ran from Cusco to Machu Picchu in like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Just one guy. So imagine 10 runners, how fast you could get there. And so it's not far for the Inca world. So it's just
Yo, El White
I don't know.
Goose.
There's so much mystery.
What's up,
there.
El White
There's
Goose?
so much that
Cartman, what do you think?
really
Why do
can't
people
be
making this place with me?
explained.
So you
yet.
think the possibility is open that these
Oh my
construction
God.
styles could be different?
Well said, Cartman, kind of.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Screw
I've
you
said,
guys.
I've said before that I think
Come
that,
on,
like,
man.
that one of the biggest possibilities for like an ancient lost civilization that could potentially be
Screw you guys.
precedent for non-ceramic civilizations in South America. Coral Supe was not ceramic, and they date back to 3500 BC. So we already have
Chat and
precedent
AI
for
always makes
civilizations that can build
me laugh,
monumental
man.
stuff that
Like,
don't have ceramics, because that's kind of like the that's kind of like the
it's just
that's
so
kind of like the thorn
unexpected.
in the rib of looking for stuff.
Show me the potsherds.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, yeah.
screw you
Look-
guys is
know,
very
look at
common.
trying to
Cartman
find
response, but I mean,
pre-dynastic
I was not
civilizations
expecting
in
that.
Egypt. They say, well, where's the ceramics? Where's the pottery? You know, and it's like, I don't know why archaeology thinks that those things have to be hand in hand. But I guess it's just because it's the old world archaeology way of thinking. You come to the new world,
Wow.
there are civilizations.
Holy
that are
moly,
building
that's
monumental
too. That
architecture
hits too
without
hard, Cartman.
ceramics, which is Coral
That hits
Supe.
way
So
too fucking hard.
I think it's possible, although there's
Cartman didn't have
very
to be
little,
so
like,
fucking
direct evidence I can point at.
accurate.
I think it's possible that there is a civilization that comes out of the Amazon that arrives in the Andes at two different times and builds monumental architecture. One, we know that they do it at
Jeez.
Chivinde Huantar, which is
Look
this.
at that
it's
emote.
in
Holy shit.
the northern Andes, much further north of Machu Picchu. And we know that the religion from the Amazon and the pottery and iconography from the Amazon meets the people from the Coral Supe culture. So these people keep getting hit by these catastrophic hurricanes and storms, these El Niños and La Niñas. They basically have to leave their civilization. They move high up in the Andes, but they don't have any pottery. And as far as we know, they don't have religion. They go up in the Andes, where the Andes meet the Amazon, and then boom, they get pottery and religion and start building megalithic architecture, just like that. Yep, it happens at Chivinde Huantar. And so we know that that's happening. Well, where's the other place that you see this huge megalithic architecture with religion? Just go down the Andes where the Andes
Boy,
meet
come
the
on,
Amazon,
bro.
and you hit Machu Picchu.
There should be an expansion pack for Settlers of Catan. You have to get pottery and religion, and then you can start building massive cities. You did.
It's weird.
10 people.
It's
You need more than sheep.
it's certainly weird. Here's another thing. I'm sorry. When Hiram Bingham discovered, this is kind of like the joke I was saying last time, where it's funny, like, you know, like these English, European, you know, whatever explorers will go down to the jungles and they'll go, hey, look at the city I found with my little friend who told me where it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, anyways, when he discovers Machu Picchu, it's actually pretty much clear, as far as we know, it's clear of most of its artifacts.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing there. However, he did send off 70 crates of stuff to Princeton, I think, that no one has ever seen. So there's that.
Classic.
Yeah, it's weird. He was like, well,
No
you know,
artifacts
Yeah.
here.
Nothing
he's
here. Take these boxes of dirt.
Nachos,
that's
come
kind of
on,
the thing
man.
is, you know, in the time that you guys have looked into Peru, you don't really see a lot of Inca artwork, pottery, artifacts. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get much
Well,
of.
they had a lot of gold and it got broken. It got bullionized, basically.
Exactly.
Shipped
So
off, sunk into the Atlantic.
you don't get much of an idea of who these people are and what their cultural context looks like And yeah, it leaves this big, massive, gaping question mark
Yeah.
there. Was in those 70 crates of artifacts that he sent back to the United States, and no one does today. But it would be interesting. Yeah, of course. It would be interesting to really know what were the first things that were found there, because you know, if you could find pottery there that was similar to Chavin, you would know that Machu Picchu was influenced by the Amazon at one point. And then that kind of paints this picture, which I'm starting to really think is that the key to it might be coming from the Amazon. Because on all the way at the other side, on the east coast of the Amazon, is where we have some of those earliest campfires in those caves that are like 20, 30,000 years old in Brazil. So and I think that there's it's not pottery, it's not fired pottery, but there's some of the oldest pottery in South America found on the east side of the Amazon. So it looks like culture drifts from the east to the west, in that it arrives in the Andes.
Come on,
that
bro.
was another thing that Barnhart said on his interview was really interesting. Is he's saying that some of the DNA evidence now is pointing to the earliest migration into the Americas at 60,000 years ago, and those are the ones that made it all the way down to the tip of South America, and have the oldest haplogroups and genes.
It's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
So
And then there was another one at 30, and then one at 12, or 15, I guess, 15.
My idea is I think it's possible that there are multiple cultures building these sites. How old the oldest one is, I don't know, because so much of the context of South America was robbed and destroyed.
Yeah. But if they're still digging stuff up at Machu Picchu and 60% of it's still underground, maybe there are artifacts there.
There probably definitely are. Another one of the ideas is that, you know, the 60% of the architecture was just laying a monumental foundation.
Come on, man.
So that
so they're building a flat floor.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And another thing is that, you know, it would be really nice to dig down to the bottom of Machu Picchu and be able to, you know, the bottom of that foundation, and be able to find a body, you know,
or carbon,
something.
anything like charcoal.
But the so many of the bodies, at least from Spanish accounts, and you know, this could have been something that was happening, you know, right before contact, but a lot of those niches that were in the temple. So you know, sometimes you see like 3 doors to nowhere.
Yeah.
At least the Inca were using those as places where their mummies,
the ancestor.
where their mummies would sit. And so, you know, there's very few things.
That would be creepy.
Yeah, there's very few things like that left that weren't looted.
Yeah.
Where you can get some kind of possible date. You know, most of it is just taken, and especially things.
Why?
But the problem with that is
3 mummies in 3 doorways doesn't really. Yeah.
I mean, you have no idea if it's intrusive.
Yeah.
Anybody can stash a mummy in an alcove and still work, right?
Yeah.
It's like they found that body they found in Cara was like shown to be, you know, put in there way later.
Sure,
it's like the same thing. It's like you just don't. It's hard to tell.
Well, and we have
if you can get to the bottom of the foundation, like you said, and find a box with somebody in it, then you're like, okay, this is probably not intrusive.
Fire.
Yeah, well, and that is the case in the Maya world. That's why it's so easy to date, to get a relative date, or at least a millennia or a century in the Maya world, because I mean, they are buried inside the foundation of their pyramids.
Yeah.
You know, there's no coming in later and stashing the body there. Whereas at Monte Alban in Tomb 7, you guys may have seen this before. Have you ever seen the skeleton head before that has the little turquoise and jade beads like glued onto it before? If I showed you, you probably would have seen it. But it's the richest tomb known in Mesoamerica, and in that tomb there were 40 other bodies from a later culture shoved into that tomb as well. You know, and so it's like people, they want to be buried in these significant places. They want to be associated with it, and so it's almost impossible, especially with these niches, to know. I mean, it actually is impossible to know without a shadow of a doubt that they come from. That niche was built for that body. You know, it could be something that becomes a legend later on.
But you could do.
That looks like him. It's not a photo that I'm familiar with, but
you could do
Nah, that's a recreation of what he looks like. He is middle right. Sorry, that's
This one.
that's him.
Whoa.
Wow.
That one looks fake.
Yeah, no, that's the real one. So that's the skull of Tomb 7, and in his tomb he had 40 other. So he was Zapotec. So he was buried sometime around 3,500 years ago. No, he's Zapotec. Yeah. So Zapotec Tomb 7, and then so the.
That's right.
Really close, yeah. And then so that is 1500 BC, 3,500 years ago, and then the Mishtec come later on, and they throw 40 bodies in his tomb. And you know what else is weird is that, in Egypt, they have all these records from the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom eras of the Egyptians looting their own sites.
Yeah.
Mesoamerica and South America, they wouldn't even have thought to do that. It just wasn't a part of the culture at all. You did not.
Oh, come
loot your own
on.
sites.
Come on,
They
bro.
buried those 40 people
come on.
in Tomb 7, the richest tomb that archaeologists currently know of in Mesoamerica, and there was so much gold in there. It's just shocking that 40 generations, or not 40 generations, but 40 different times people were thrown in that tomb, and as
No
far
one
as we
took
know,
anything out,
nothing
yeah.
was stolen.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Strange, which is another reason I say that studying the Americas, we're studying aliens. These people are so much different than us. Another thing is this head right here is gigantic. I have a big head, and that skull is so much bigger than mine.
Huh.
And it doesn't.
Zapotec.
Yeah,
There you go.
Zapotec. And that's Monte Alban.
And somebody definitely cut the top of his head off.
Mm-hmm.
Opened the skull.
Yeah, I forget what's the trepidation? Yeah. No.
Like, it was just so dumb, man.
Yeah.
It was just like this game is just so dumb.
We should take a break. But this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
Sorry, I feel like I'm going down so many different.
No,
rabbit
it's
holes, but
no. This is
I
this is
am
the tangent cube.
I am still trying to. It's been like a whirlwind since I left.
Yeah.
And I'm about to go to Egypt, and so I'm still kind of wrapping my head around all the stuff that I saw in Peru. Like, it's going to take me a while to really contextualize it and know exactly how I feel about so many of these things.
Awesome.
All right, we'll be back. This is not the end, even though it's the ending music.
Damn it. God damn it.
Yeah, where I want to go,
Yeah.
and I end up somewhere else. And
That's the other thing is during the breaks we're like, bro, you need to focus.
yeah.
That didn't happen.
It's really just for me to regroup.
Yeah, the breaks are useful for us, that they let us sort of realign where we're going to go discuss the next thing. And like I said, he brought more pictures and Kyle had to do some audio stuff.
Yeah,
I got the keyboard. I got him a keyboard
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So.
On a real note, that I actually like that so much when I come to y'all's podcast that I don't know if it's every 30 minutes or so we end up taking a little break, because sometimes when you're on those, I know you guys know, when you're on those 3-hour podcasts, your eyes and your mind are like so glazed over by the end of it because you've been speaking for 3 hours straight.
Yeah.
You just reach this, I don't even know, you reach this like other place where you're just totally out of it and just rambling.
That's right. And, when we first started this, I know this is a little inside baseball, but when we first started doing this, it was just an audio podcast.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like basing the format off of old radio, right? Old radio shows. And you had breaks. Now, we just threw in music, Kyle's music, but, you got to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we had an air conditioning unit that was really
Loud. And so during the summer, you have to run. You can't run it during recording. So after 30 minutes, we were sweating. So we take a break, turn on the AC, cool it back down.
That makes sense.
So we got some people to catch up with. John Lopez, cheers.
More
Thanks
beer,
for the
cheers.
$2.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Ed Food text you later, $5 from memory. 20,000 people to move this stone. I think you guys were talking about.
Yeah,
3,000 men
3,000
died when one rock
Fuck
fell.
off,
Okay.
man.
Rolling down the hill.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am looking for one more photo I just thought of.
Thanks so much for the lucrative conversation there, old Ed Fu. Really appreciate it. Blues Chris, advance payment to Kyle. See that? $5.
Payment to Kyle.
Payment in advance.
Do I have $5? I don't know.
She would like the castañuelas.
It's got the castañuelas in it.
Is that what they're called?
What the fuck was
guessing.
that?
I thought they were called castanets. The little like spoon thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I actually did put those in Traveler, the song we started the podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I will
Come
send
on,
you
bro.
and
I can
the
upload
Traveler.
it. Yeah, yeah.
I-
Traveler is on the page.
Sorry, I airdropped you one more thing that I
Yo.
just thought about.
Like
I'm
this
sorry,
fucking
sorry.
game, dude.
If I waited till the next break, I would have forgotten.
No, it's all good. I'll do it in there. Let's see. And then there's one more.
Jonathan Frost.
That was it.
Yes. Go ahead.
$15. There's so
Oh,
much
wow.
interconnected information. It's a confounding web.
Can't believe
so
that was
tangent
23.
away. Cool. There you go. Thank you, Jonathan.
I'm glad you guys don't eat it.
No, I love it.
No, it's all
It's a
cool.
tradition here.
Yeah. There's got to be a good amount of chaos to do a good podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, it's like,
It's boring.
you know, you feel professional.
Yeah, that's so true. You never want to do that.
Never want to feel too professional.
Okay. All right. Oh no! You just sent me one photo.
It was a little video, yeah.
Okay, got it. And I thought I had it. Crap.
Man, I can't wait to get down there though. Like we're gonna be, you know, we've been talking about doing a tour with Ben in Peru for a long time, so we're headed down there soon to do some scouting, and then hopefully there will be a Peru tour, maybe next year.
Yeah.
If not the end of next year, then maybe the beginning of the year after that. But soon.
Okay, yeah. So that's green and blue. I took 3 guitar lessons in my life, and they
Nice.
were flamenco lessons
Nice.
in Italy. No, it was Austria.
I took a lot of guitar lessons when I was a kid, and I can play like E minor, and G and C and D and E.
That's good enough. You can play quite a few songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's start. I think a good.
Here, let me get you
Oh,
down
I'm sorry.
there.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
All right. So I think a good place to start is this little video here.
All right.
This is gonna go on a YouTube video. At
So
some
should we
point.
mute it, or do you want it to?
I don't think the sound's gonna come through.
Okay.
Sure. We can just narrate it. But this is a little glimpse into that alleyway that I was talking about, where you kind of see the rock naturally, or you kind of not naturally, but it's made to look like it's coming out of the natural granite outcropping into the walls. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You need to do it.
So that you think it's going? The audio's going
No,
through?
the audio's not
Okay.
going through.
Yeah. So go ahead. And use
So
it.
you can see through here. I don't
You
know.
can make it go through.
No, it's okay. I don't know how good the audio is, but you can see they're making these little stairways up through these rock outcroppings, and then here, I'm pretty
Come on,
certain
man.
that those are artificial cuts into the stone, and then as it goes, you can see the little stairways through the alley, and it naturally turns into. I just stopped filming because
Your
there was
pants.
somebody. Yeah. Sorry. It naturally goes to my crotch.
Saw it here first, folks.
Okay. All right. So the next photo gives you a little more glimpse into this. I have some stuff on my camera that is just sitting in my Dropbox that there's like thousands of them that I need to go through. But
All right.
okay,
You pick
so
the one you want.
so it eventually morphs into this that flows into the city.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's like dry laid, and
Yeah.
you know it's beautiful, but it's not those perfectly tight.
It's not. You guys are gonna be okay. So look on the right. That is polygonal cellular, and then on the left, that is I think it's Hananpacha, but it is just there's not mortar between those blocks, but it's much smaller.
Yeah.
These jokes. I'm sorry. This is a good one. Earth Tribe. Luke slicked his hair back with some gap. Gap fat. I love it.
I should start like a pomade brand. Gap Fat.
Gap Fat.
Yeah.
I've been trying not to.
Peruvian Gap Fat.
Dapper Dan? I don't
yeah.
use Dapper Dan.
I use
God
Gap
damn it,
Fat.
man.
Hey, let me see the name of that. Earth Tribe? Okay, I'll remember that. If I ever come out with a pomade, that will be the name of it. That would be awesome.
Dude, they've been cracking me up in the chats. I'm
That's-
trying to. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah, trying to stay professional
Thanks.
over here.
Thanks, you guys.
Trolls.
Okay, back to this
Somebody
cool
says
stuff.
Guaranteed to last 10,000 years. Peruvian Gap Fat.
Yeah. Somebody said masterful video footage. It's like the worst video I've ever taken.
Troy says he
Oh.
sexually assaulted everyone.
I put everybody in my crotch. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, that was great.
Oh, okay, so anyways, anyways, when you guys go, you're gonna realize that there's like, not only is it, normally we acknowledge like the three different styles of architecture. You have like the, just the megalithic architecture, then you have the imperial, that's more like the square, and then you have the rubble on top. It's not just that. It's like there's like 7 or 8 different styles of
yeah.
stonework, and it's really perplexing. And it's like, okay, if this was one culture doing 7 different styles of stonework, why?
Yeah.
It just why would they do that? But even if it's just 2, then it's like 4 different styles of stonework per culture.
Yeah.
From a very simplistic point of view. So I'm going to show you this. So if I were to look at this wall and then I were just to keep turning to the right, you eventually come there.
Okay.
And then if you keep turning to the right, it turns into those granite outcroppings that I was showing you. That's
my
amazing.
favorites.
So here's a
Hit escape if you want to see the whole.
yeah. So it's okay. So here, so as you're walking down here, if you walk straight down this alleyway, you eventually reach this. And
This
so
is incredible. This is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is, at least what Dr. Barnhart and I think, and you would not see this in any textbooks. You wouldn't really see this acknowledged by
How is that still up there?
That's what I'm
most
saying.
academics.
So
Is that
here's that? I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt
you're
you,
okay.
bro, but this is the natural stone still
What
right
the
here.
fuck?
yes? Yeah.
And look at this slope they're building on. It's just. Do you think this is like modern archaeologists sticking this in there, like please don't fall, or is
I
this
don't
the
know.
way they actually construct it?
I think it's the gap fat. That's holding it on there. No, man. It's as far as I mean, I'm sure all of this is a little bit dressed up, from archaeologists. But there are photos. This is called the Condor. This structure here is called the Condor. But there are photos of this from the time of Hiram Bingham, and you can see that the majority of that stonework is still sitting on there. And so this supports this idea that they are trying to make Machu Picchu look like it is one with the mountain.
That's just incredible.
Yeah, and that the city is emerging from the mountain. So here's another thing is like, even if the Inca didn't create that monumental architecture, this is still one hell of a feat to do this.
Yeah.
It shows that those were some damn smart people. That's pretty cool. Here's another example. This is one side of the Condor, and so those cuts that are coming from the those cuts that are going through are artificial, and you can kind of see how they merge into a little bit of the stonework that you can see on top. Like
Yeah.
it looks like the stonework is just popping out of the outcropping of the mountain. Inca staircase that goes into the
Now
side
that's
of the granite
scooped out of the
outcropping.
side. Look
And
at the
that's-
scoops.
Yeah, we were going down this, and I had to stop everyone behind me. I was like, whoa. And I thought of you guys as I was looking at this. This is actually on top of Huayna Picchu, which is the peak that sits over the city of Machu Picchu. This is up on top of that, and it's like they scooped out the side of the granite to make the staircase a little more accessible to go through. Because that's it. As wide as that looks, it's actually extremely narrow. Like
Yeah, it looks
both
narrow.
Both of my shoulders were scraping against the
Yeah.
the granite right there. So yeah, they just got their granite scooper and made it a little bit
Yeah, just widen it out. 'Cause
widen it out a little
those
bit.
the wedge-shaped Indian guys can't fit through there.
So here's another scoop mark that I saw. This is a little niche corner that was roped off, and I don't even know, because Machu Picchu is like this strange labyrinth. Like you'll be walking through the city and you look down and there's a chamber down there, and you're like, I never saw the entrance to this, you know. And there's these little tunnels and chambers and labyrinths that are running under everything. I'm sorry. This is actually a video.
Yeah, let's play the video. You can mute it.
Do you see those scoop marks there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I
That's-
see them.
And that's in the granite.
Yep.
How bizarre is that? I'm sure that you've seen stuff in Egypt that looks very similar.
This the way this looks, it reminds me of the back of that one statue at Luxor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the statue at Luxor, like the two statues on the entrance, when you go there, make sure to inspect the whole statue and its base. Or this one, the base is this big square.
Are these the Colossi statues that are like right up at the
Not the
the
Colossi.
entrance?
Well, yes, at the entrance of
like the seated,
Luxor Temple.
figures. Yeah.
Are they seated? Can't remember. I think they are.
I think that
But-
flanking the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're standing. I don't know. I got pictures, but when you go around behind the statue, you can see the back of the statue all the way down is flattened, and it's got maybe writing and whatever on it. And then when it gets to the base, it like curves in, and it looks like this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's just these huge scoops taken out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it looks like the quarry.
Yeah.
When you go to the quarry,
You gotta go to
Aswan.
Aswan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That place.
When you see the stone right in the mountain, and it has these big scoops like this, but the back of the statue, it's like they were cutting away for something else, and they didn't have enough stone there to continue the back straight, so it was previously cut away, but they're like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, the explanation for how they were doing this is pretty simple. They were taking the dolerite pounding stone.
Yeah.
I was just kidding.
I'm liking this natron.
You like the
idea.
natron idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is that?
I've seen people, or maybe it's the same guy. I don't remember his name.
Marcus.
Is it him? Maybe I've seen him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because he's showing, like, look at this divot I just
Yeah.
made in this giant granite block.
Yeah.
And he's making natron, and it's just eating away the stone. And you just,
That I like the idea of the acid coming from the Atacama Desert.
Yeah.
And like kind of like that, eating
Yeah.
away at the stone, softening the stone. There's this little temple called the Temple of the Moon on the backside of on the backside of Machu Picchu. What are you seeing up there?
Keep going.
I think I saw somebody say something about they're made out of chicken bones, and, or they're cut with chicken bones and wood blocks.
you guys are really cutting me up here.
So, anyways, there's this temple that Dr. Barnhart saw maybe like 20 years ago on the backside of Machu Picchu, and it's roped off now. You can't go down. Maybe if you had special access, you could get to it. Something I'm gonna try at some point. But you go up Machu Picchu, which is the mountain that flanks Machu Picchu. You go all the way down. This would take you like several hours just to get to. You go all the way down, and there's this temple on the backside. And Dr. Barnhart said that he has seen these crystalline inclusions that are like crawling from one block to the other.
Yeah.
And, like,
Wow.
locking
He talks
the
about
blocks.
that on Lex.
Does he say that it was at
Yeah.
Machu Picchu?
Yeah. Well, I don't remember
Maybe
that.
he didn't say that, but
He
yeah.
just
What
said
kind
he
of
sees
stone?
it. He's like, yeah,
It's
he's
granite.
yeah, like it looks like he was basically saying it looks like the rest of the stone material was made to flow, but the crystals didn't
Come
melt
on,
or whatever
man.
in the process, and so you can see that they kind of merged in.
Yeah, they're like reaching down from one block, reaching up from the other, and locking.
Yeah.
And he said it's very prominent at that temple.
The other
probably shouldn't
way
say
that
that.
can happen is they're
Oh,
so
yeah.
old that the crystals have time to grow. Right. But that would be a
Oh, that is
long,
interesting.
long time. But you see this in caves where you
Oh,
can see
whoa,
like
that is.
That's what I was initially thinking, is that these crystals were growing.
they
but
grow. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine.
in a long time. But like you can see it in caves where like crystal formations have like basically interlocked with each other because
How
they're.
long does it take to just grow that much?
Of what? Right? Like if we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah.
quartz, it has to be coated in silica. How do you
Yeah.
get, where's the silica coming from? Like it would need more of those atoms bumping into the crystal face in order to.
I mean, it would have to be like water running down, eroding it from above and bringing it down and running it across like it does in a cave.
In it, and then
And I mean, the Andes get rain. I mean, it's raining
Come
in
on,
his
man.
videos, right? So it would be, water would be running along them. I just don't know how long that would take, but it could happen that way. But it would be old, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's my thing is I think that South America is like the best evidence, my
Yeah.
opinion, for a lost civilization. I think it's the easiest argument, you know.
Yeah. Some places in Egypt you can see a like something between the that's between the blocks,
Mhm.
right? And in some cases they say like, well, this may be mortar, but it also is possible that it's just an accumulation of material that has gathered there over
Sure,
long
sure.
periods of time, and it forms like this very thin crystal layer that kind of sticks to both blocks, right?
Interesting.
And then,
But they would probably be that material, or if these crystals were growing like that, it would probably be more something like calcite crystals, rather than it wouldn't be quartz. That's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. Like in granite, you're dealing with quartz.
Right.
Like calcite crystals, I can totally
calcite,
imagine growing.
calcite and limestone, right? Would grow much faster, and it erodes way easier with water.
I would love for you guys to have this exact conversation with Dr. Barnhart.
Oh, that would be I would love to do that. Maybe get him on the show. Would be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
we need
yeah.
To go, we need to go down there and see this gap fat.
Yeah. You'll see it.
I need to get a sample. We're gonna be rich, bro. We're gonna make a.
Gap fat pomade. I have an idea now.
So you got some more videos. I mean,
Yeah. So
I just can't get past it. I gotta show this one. This is just. This is my favorite.
The con-
photo you sent.
yeah, Temple of the Condor. Pretty cool. There's actually well, I say a tomb. There is a collection of niches beneath this gigantic boulder. You like crawl underneath it, and then there's those 3 niches down there again.
Well, I would like to know why there's a hole in the. Look at that.
This.
Pointing at it with my beer. Yeah.
It's like a window.
What is that for?
That's a window, bro. That's for your ancestor's mummy.
I don't know, man. I just don't.
Like,
Wow,
just to make
insane.
this harder, let's put a window right here.
And so
Yeah.
when you
Pretty
see that
insane,
gap
bro.
Underneath the giant boulder, you crawl underneath that, and
Ah.
then there's niches beneath that too. Yeah.
I wonder if they were
Truly insane.
These windows, like if there was going to be a series of them across, and they just that's an end wall. So I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
I know. I was thinking the same
But
thing.
an end wall, I wonder if that's just put there by
That's
archaeologists
crazy.
later on to
Maybe.
make it look nice. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they did.
I think it's possible.
maybe they did.
Yeah, sometimes with these things, you know, when they were found
See, the
on
U.S.
research
gave them
shows, they would,
$500 million
kinda
again.
just put back together, and then
You
you
gotta
know,
be an insane archaeologist to be like, yeah, I'll put the
build it
wall
right.
Sure,
up
sure,
on
sure.
the slope like that.
Yeah,
No problem. Talented archaeologist.
Somebody, yeah, West 08 points out, doesn't look earthquake proof. Like if that shook, that stuff's coming down. At least that part.
but we know
Unless it's
we
loose.
know it's been there through 2 gigantic earthquakes.
Oh wow.
But look
Yep.
at this. Look at these joins
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like these are. And then it
I mean, that
turns
is-
into this. This is a
Yeah, that's
completely
different.
stonework.
That's a completely
Yeah,
different style.
Now, sometimes it's just
Wow,
thrown
that's
back
shocking.
together
That's
by
23. I thought that was
archaeologists in some
22
places,
for
but
sure.
It's very hard to know, and it would take somebody who has like worked at the site their whole life to be able to
Yeah.
tell, like, oh, that's original. Oh no, this was just thrown back
I
together.
think
You know,
it's
it's tough to say.
It's
Yeah.
similar in Egypt too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that all over the ancient world. You know, when they first discovered stuff, they tried to put some things back together, and sometimes it's just hard to know what exactly. One of the genius things that they did, this isn't in South America, but this is in at Monte Alban. When archaeologists repaired something, they put a colored mortar.
I'm really
between the
surprised that
blocks.
was 23.
It's very obvious.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
it's a
would be great.
white mortar between the blocks that has these little speckles in it, and so every single place that's reconstructed, you know that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Whereas at Machu Picchu, it's impossible to tell, and like, you know, sometimes I'll see videos of people walking around Machu Picchu, And sometimes it just takes a trained eye to see. Sometimes it's like, okay, that's not actually ancient. That's placed back together. And sometimes I'll see people saying, well, look at this different stonework where this is the megalithic and this is the, rubble. And it's like, just for somebody who's seen, 100 archaeological sites, you just know that was put together by archaeologists.
Yeah.
And so it makes it very confusing sometimes to know what you're looking at.
It's the same in Egypt. A lot of the dynastic temples are rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through and you realize like this was all basically rubble on the ground. A lot of it's been stacked back up. And some columns they've had to almost completely replace them because most of it's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, you deal with the same thing everywhere. And like lots of Egypt has been rebuilt, and some of it has been rebuilt badly.
Yeah. Well, and another thing to think is like how much of it was rebuilt badly by the Egyptians during ancient times.
Yeah.
It's just
exactly.
how much of it was rebuilt badly by the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans, and the Christians and the Muslims.
The Persian tunnel going through that goes through the step pyramid of Djoser to look down the shaft. That tunnel is like, it's awful. Like they cut this thing through, and it was starting to collapse on them. So then they were stealing pillars from tombs nearby and jamming them in there. So there's all these stone pillars from all these various different sites that are just jammed in, trying to hold this. Because it's like it's small blocks of limestone, and you can see these huge cracks, and that they're freaking out. They're jamming these pillars in there, trying to hold it. Terrible job.
Speaking of pillars, it's very slight a rabbit hole. I did a video recently on just how far ahead, or I'm writing a video right now about just how far ahead Egypt was from the rest of the ancient world, even at their like youngest date. Even if Saqqara really is from 2700 BC and Giza really is 2600 something BC. The Romans never start building or never start erecting megalithic monuments until they annex Egypt, until Cleopatra has died and they've taken Alexandria, conquered Egypt. Because those gray granite pillars that I think come from a quarry in the Fayum, a gray granite quarry in the Fayum, those are only erected just right after they annex Egypt. And so they learn this, or they're inspired by and are able to re-engineer or reinvent the method of quarrying, cutting, and erecting megalithic monuments. Because those Parthian,
Or the guilds just went to work for them.
Sure, exactly. And so that probably is what it is. And so at the not the Parthenon, but the Pantheon in Rome, each one of those columns is one solid piece of gray granite. Now, what's amazing is that happened, I think that the Pantheon is the 1st century AD. What's amazing is that there were solid granite columns laying in the desert at Saqqara for the last almost 3,000 years at least, leading up to that. Just laying out there for 3,000 years before the Egyptians ever even, before the Romans start doing it. It's just, I can't even fathom. Okay.
Come on, man.
Okay, that is from now to the fall of Troy, 3,200 years. It's almost the same amount of time between Saqqara and the Romans learning how to erect megalithic monuments from the Egyptians.
It's a long time.
Just crazy. And that's it. That's it. Like the most conservative, the most conservative estimates of how old these cultures are.
That's why you have the Ozymandias poem. This is the whole thing. It's like these we come across this colossus in the desert, like laying on its side, enormous half of a face sticking out, and there's a foot over there in a column sticking out of the sand. And you're just, he's like, look upon my works, ye mighty, in despair. All you Romans and Greeks, and you guys think you're badass. Look at this thing. We did this so long ago that they don't even know who it was anymore.
It's so cool.
It's amazing.
So, anyways, getting back to Cusco, I want you guys to look at this corner of this building.
All right, let's all look at this corner. That's a fantastic corner.
That is really well done.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit space like it was going to play.
It should have. All right, let's play it.
So,
Oh yeah.
you know, I don't know how deep these blocks go, and this is one of the few examples of it, of these curved stones. I think a lot of these corners of the buildings were ripped down, as far as what I can tell. Look at that cross that's cut into the corner. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, did you guys see anything like this in Egypt? Because
I think there's any
seen
round corners like that.
Yeah, because I've seen rounded corners on the inside
Yeah,
in Egypt, but not on the outside.
yeah.
You know, and I mean,
They're rounded by time, but not that was rounded.
Sure.
In construction.
And I don't know if there's any gap fat between those.
I was gonna say.
I don't know. That's the only
Where do you
example
put the
that I
gap
saw.
fat on the corner block? You know.
I don't know, man. Yeah, just there was so much.
Yo, how's
so
the Switch,
that-
brother?
that
How's
is
the
a
Switch on the big screen?
variation, curved
How is Super
stones,
Mario Maker
imperial
2
style.
on
Okay.
the
Now,
big screen
This bottom right, here's
with the
this
Pro
is,
controller?
photo of the 12-sided stone.
Yeah.
Now this is a step above what 99% of the architecture of the ancient architecture in Cusco is, which is that imperial
You can
style.
lurk.
This is imperial.
You can just lurk if you want. You don't have to type.
And these are these really pillowed.
It's great.
This is the
Yo,
Temple
thanks,
of
bro.
the Moon, Temple of the 12-sided stone.
Oh
And this is just
no
like right- I mean, this is
freaking
a
way!
across the
Are
street
you
from my
serious?
hotel.
I'm so upset.
And,
I'm so upset. I need to
these
take a
stones
water
are
break. One
really
sec.
gigantic.
I'm
Let me see.
upset.
The joins on the stones, on the stones in the sidewalk.
Wow, no
Oh,
freaking way.
Those are filled with gap fat.
yeah, for sure.
But you see the surface damage and the fracturing on that.
Yeah, that is.
It's similar to yeah.
Yeah. So what do you? What's your takeaway from looking at this right here?
That upsets me.
So much to look.
I'm
at.
upset.
Yeah, there's a lot of what look like tool marks on it. God, that one behind you there, this sort of U-join
Mhm.
is amazing.
Yeah, it's just.
And then there's like a reverse nub. There's a divot in the block.
Yep.
Yeah. And then like exterior nubs in a row.
Come on, bro.
Across the top there. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is the one that I used for the show art too.
Yeah, and just gigantic.
Now,
And
do you think these have gaps?
I wish we were building stuff like this.
no, I don't know if these have gaps because there were places where you could see an earthquake had shook the wall and it had opened up and you could look straight down and it looked perfectly parallel all the way down.
Because I was gonna say like
That's absurd, bro.
This looks very similar to what we see exterior
Very
stones.
similar,
And now,
right?
now obviously on Ankara, there's a lot more of a regular layers than this one. But the layers still, you'll see these slight changes. It'll drop down a couple of inches, go up a couple inches here. But you can see that the blocks were completely fitted all the way through the depth of the blocks. And some of them are 6 feet deep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. This little point. Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed while I was there is, like I was saying a moment ago, where you could see how earthquakes had separated some of these blocks. What it had also done in some places is it had caused the block sitting on top to slide back, and so it opened up the lower block. And on that lower block, it almost looked like the block that was placed. Too much gap fat. But the lower block, it looked like the upper block had made an impression on it, like it had pushed down the top of it, if that makes sense. So it was like the lip would curve like that, and it was like the weight of the upper block pressed down into it. And so that
implying that it was soft.
implying that it was soft at one point, and that by softening the edges of the stones and placing them on each other, that's what made them perfectly fit. And then they were probably polished up on the exterior, made to look nice, you know.
Doesn't this look unfinished to you? Like
Yeah.
it looks like they somebody
yeah,
intended to come along and sort of smooth it out,
And
give
that,
it some facing.
yeah, and that, yeah, it's weird. Like some of them are done, and some of them are not.
Yeah, like that's the very square one in the middle.
Yep.
But it's still got a
This-
big divot in there.
This
Sure,
beveling
sure.
that they do on the joins is just, I mean, this is, I don't know.
You think that's finished work?
I don't know if it's finished work or are they, because part of the idea about if you're planning to flatten this wall, you have to know that every join where the actual mating face
Yeah.
is far enough
It's complete.
out to be along the plane that you're going to flatten the wall at.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense that while fitting the stone, if you have some kind of guide that you, like you're doing some sort of surveying where you can say, okay, the join needs to come out this far, that they would go in and bevel all the edges to make sure, like, okay, here's the mating face all the way down, and it's sticking out far enough to where when we flatten the wall, that's what it seems like to me. Is this beveling is part of the process of having a flat surface at the end.
Yeah, you're checking all of your
Because
edges there.
otherwise, it wouldn't matter. If you weren't going to flatten it, it wouldn't really matter where the join was. Like the join could be deeper in, some joints could stick out further. If you weren't going to flatten the wall, it wouldn't make any difference. So
Yep.
it'd be interesting to set up a surveying instrument somewhere along the sidewalk
Find out if all those joins are
and use a
close to the
measuring
same
stick
depth.
and check in right from every join along this wall and see if they are the same distance away from wherever your transit. If you can, you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You get a line.
Are they the same depth so that if you
If you projected a
shaved off the
plane,
whole wall,
yes. If you projected a plane across this surface, would the plane match up to all those join
yeah,
faces?
or it'd be really close.
Yeah. Or at least none go deeper.
Deeper.
Like once you'll find a minimum depth
yeah,
or a maximum depth that they would go.
yeah.
No,
So that's why, like, if otherwise, why do all this work along these joins?
I know,
to
right?
check where they all this beveling.
It is so strange, but there is not one, as far as I
Scanning the
know.
wall would do it. Yeah, this is a good point. You just scan this wall and then
Yeah.
you could check it. That's what we gotta do.
As far
Wall
as
scan project. It's
as,
on.
as far as I know, there is not an example of one of these blocks being flattened, like the way you see on the Minkare
Yeah.
pyramid,
Yeah.
where you can tell that they were in the process of doing that, and it ended.
So
it doesn't
still,
look-
if you're thinking about building, you want to build a wall in a straight line, right? If they intended to build a straight line, how do they know that it's straight? If the blocks are at different depths all
Yeah.
along it, how do you measure that?
Well,
so there has to be a standard.
Another
some way.
another thing that adds a bit of complexity is that this wall is not vertical. It is leaning.
Same
Yeah.
same thing at the Osirian.
Oh, are
I
those
want to
walls
say
leaning?
the
Yeah.
exterior
None of
walls,
them are
like
straight.
how do you say this? When you're inside the building and you
that's
look at
crazy.
the exterior walls, they all lean out a little bit.
Yeah. And then all the pillars are very slightly tapered inwards, and all the walls at the exterior are very slightly tapered out, which makes the negative space weird. It's an interesting
It's just
effect.
foreshortening, right?
Yeah.
When you look up,
It's just as
it's
big,
getting bigger as it gets further away.
So
the,
yeah.
the inside space,
so it messes with your ability to judge distances. Yeah.
because it doesn't go.
It
like
doesn't
this.
get narrower, so you can tell it's far away, right? It's like it looks straight. It's
I'm
weird.
looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah. When you get under the
That is
3
weird.
surviving ceiling blocks, and you look up there and you start to realize how enormous those things are. I got to climb up the sidewall and get up next to them, and yeah, they're like 4.5, 5 feet tall, thick, and they span the whole entrance, and you're just like, okay, this thing is massive. But when you're standing underneath it and you're looking up there, you're just like, yeah, that thing's floating up there above my head.
It's just crazy.
Come on,
Ed
man.
will text you later. $5. Thanks, bro. He says the mind boggles. Did they design this before cutting and placing the blocks? If they weren't working off a plan, the shaping must have been easy for them.
Every friggin' run, man.
Were they? Did they plan it?
Were these blocks
Or were they
all
just
designed?
going along?
So I have an answer for that, at least in one place in Egypt, in the pyramid, or no, the Sphinx temple. All of the casing stones that would have cased the inside walls have been removed, and the bottom floor assuming there was multiple floors, was rock cut. A whole lot of it was just cut out of the bedrock.
Yeah.
And there are areas where the bedrock just juts out, like a square block of it juts out of the wall and at the ground level in a hallway that you can see clear depressions all along the hallway where there were granite casing stones, and there's some still in there.
Yeah.
So in other words, to answer your question, I think that it's proof that they were both cutting the bedrock and laying the casing stones against it at the same time. They're cutting the bedrock away, putting a new stone, cutting the bedrock away some more, putting a new casing stone. And that's why when they get the next stone, whatever shape and size it is, they're just like, well, just leave this little chunk of bedrock right here. Don't cut it all away because that next stone is a different size.
Yeah.
But they had to be doing these things at the same time. Right? So in other words, I don't think it was planned. I think the overall plan was a plan.
Sure.
But the actual laying
You don't
of the
think they had a
stonework-
CAD drawing with every individual block completely
No.
planned out, plus the bedrock cuts?
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
because the guys at the quarry would have had to know what size, whatever, or they would have been.
They're delivering like standard block sizes, and you're having to cut them up on site.
Yeah, standard to a degree.
Yeah.
Like they knew, like they could have large and various sizes because
Yeah.
the casing blocks are many different sizes.
Yeah.
And shapes.
I think as far as in Peru, I think there's two answers. Two answers for two different possible scenarios. But I agree with Kyle that yes, I think that it is just a method by which they make the blocks. They don't have every single individual block planned, but they know how they're going to build the wall. Does that make sense? Like they know how they're going to shape. They're going to know how they're going to shape it.
Yes.
But at the same time, let's say these are not built by the Inca, and that they're, an unknown. They go back to an unknown antiquity. Just by looking at the wall, it's obvious that it had to be planned out. These guys very well knew what they were doing. If it was built by the Inca, well, look at the rest of the Inca world. They were able to feed at least 10 million people, and they had, one of the most successfully run empires of all time. If they're doing this, they definitely have a system by which they're doing it, and that it's planned out.
I
to a
think that's
certain
what it is.
degree.
It's a system.
Yeah.
In both cases, I would say, like in the Sphinx Temple, for example, there was a system. They were all, the architects, the builders were all very familiar with this system. And so they could design a building that was, first you had to cut it out of bedrock, and then you had to case it in a different stone, and they would probably have a grand design, but then just do it using their system.
Organically, it's also a bit of sculpture and work of art.
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably I would guess
Troy,
that they were.
I would destroy you at skipping stones.
I would guess that they were also okay with there kind of being a bit of madness to the method, because they probably knew that as long as these blocks are just very irregular, they're going to interlock with each other, and they're going to be able to survive earthquakes. I mean, the people living
what?
here know that earthquakes happen literally all the time.
Yeah.
And that if you just stack a bunch of rocks together, it will crumble and kill your loved ones when an earthquake comes. So you have to build something to protect you from the elements, to keep you warm when it's cold outside, because it can get really cold there, and the wind can blow really fast out there. You want some kind of shelter that's not going to fall on you and kill you when an earthquake comes. And so, I mean, whoever built these, they had to have, I would guess, like many generations of knowledge
Come on, dude.
of the world that they're living in, to be able to use their resources to build walls like this.
Yeah,
you know?
so that begs the question, why were they also doing it? I guess there
I
are
know.
earthquakes there too, but I mean, they're
My
not
farm-
as common.
Yeah.
But at the same time, well,
So did it?
Okay, well,
I
I wonder how. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they are common. I mean, they are next to the
Are they
rift
common?
along the. I don't know if they're common. They do have.
Apparently, it was an earthquake that damaged
cracked
all
the
casing
initial
stone.
casing step. Well, that's the.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
wow,
That's
I
the
didn't know
story. Like,
Really, is it?
They couldn't really, get a It was like the first it cracks it, and then you can get access, and then you start digging them out of there.
Really, I did
Yeah.
not know that. Supposedly it was an earthquake. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, that's what they
didn't
say.
Yeah. I didn't really know that they get earthquakes out there.
They do. Yeah. I mean, there's earthquake damage on a lot of the sites. So
Yeah. How much stonework in Egypt is like this, or is it kind of like the Menkaure pyramid and the Osirion, like a few exceptional places?
If you saw that in Egypt, you would think it's Old Kingdom. Like it looks like some of the oldest stuff. It's Valley Temple, Menkaure, Osirian. You know, but
besides the fact that it's not flattened,
It's so similar. It's so similar. Yeah.
Come on, like,
it's
come
very
on.
Similar. Now, again, Russ pointed out a lot of in Egypt, a lot of the lateral lines are straight.
Yeah.
Like the old, what did you call them? The blocks in Cusco for the lateral lines.
Imperial. Yeah.
blocks.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the Egyptian stuff. But
And those are the size of these though. The ones in Egypt. They're the size
Yes,
of this,
they're-
but they're
they're-
like straight.
they're this size. And I mean, this.
hey,
just-
Chuck just agreed with you, Kyle. For one time, he agrees with you. Because I agree with Kyle. For once, I also think that was the process of fitting these stones.
Hot damn, Chuck.
Nice.
It's a good thing
Chuck,
you
you're a
agree with
traitor.
me. Don't listen to him, bro.
Thanks, Chuck.
The other
Appreciate
thing,
it, buddy.
the other thing is, what could possibly be the opposite explanation? How do two different cultures develop stonework so similar? How can that be possible?
so-
like it's so similar, you know?
Let's say that the cutting tool was a natural, like, let's just go with this natron idea, that it was in some way a chemical process that could wear away the granite. I think that could possibly result in the same looking types of, like, this sort of pillowy, right? Because one of the things that the guy was saying was, especially when you're trying to dig under something or whatever, you're like making a pile, and it's making a bowl shape in the stone, and so you'd make a bunch of them, so you have these like scoop marks all next to each other, and you keep doing that. So maybe the stones that they're cutting out of the quarry would look the same initially, and that might influence the building process. And I'm wondering too about like making those.
Alright, I
manual
think it's time to load the vape after that
each
response
other.
by Shigeru
If you
Miyamoto.
spread this stuff out and you put the two stones. I mean, how long does this take? That's the other thing. You got to sit there and like, you know, let
It couldn't have been that. It couldn't have been that long.
That's
I mean,
not-
look at it. When you guys go, you'll see how much stonework there is like this, and it's like these guys were doing this fast. You know,
Well, if it was the Inca, if it was somebody older, then we don't know how long. it
Sure.
took.
Yeah. Well. I'm sorry. I don't necessarily mean like over the course of 150 years, the Inca built all this, and
Yeah,
so therefore they
yeah.
were doing it fast. I just
Greg's is bitching Chuck out right now.
yeah.
bloody training, Chuck.
I just mean that like the sheer amount of stonework that's there, you must think like there's no way this was taking hundreds or decades to do this.
Yeah.
Like they must have been really able to do this, you know?
Yeah.
And because Cusco, like the ancient city is the size of a modern city. It is that big. When you walk around when you guys walk around Cusco, you'll just keep on walking and walking and walking and walking and
Yeah.
walking, and the city just goes on forever. And it's this type of stone, or at the very least, it's the imperial style. And you're like, man,
Do you
they had
see
to be able
scoop marks on the imperial stuff, or is it mostly just
Nope.
the pock mark?
to. No,
Okay,
no,
see
no,
that?
Yeah.
See this? Yeah, let's
Yeah.
look at this one. I think that might be a key. Like, I'll be interested to see this when we go down there. Of course, like you said, you have to go.
And I will say, I don't think that it is so. I don't think it is so black and white as it is sometimes presented. You look at everything that we know that the Inca were doing.
Yeah.
I think it is not outside of the realm of possibility to easily attribute to them the imperial stonework.
Sure.
We have, those blocks are about the size that two guys could carry one of those stones, and they're nowhere near the size of these stones here. And Cieza de Leon, I mean, he documents that they were constructing these imperials. I mean,
Yeah.
he witnessed it.
Yeah.
At the same time, another guy living at the same time saw the blocks at Sacsayhuaman not being moved with any success. So there's some nuance to it, you know. It's not like the Inca were only able to do the brick and mortar style construction. You know, they were probably able to do a little bit more than that. You know, at the very least, they were able to do a little more than that. And you look at their whole empire. I mean, these were capable and intelligent people. So it's, I don't know. I think there's a lot of nuance to the mystery.
Yeah.
Is what I think.
I think this is two different types of working the stone. Whatever is going on here
Yep.
is
And
very
whatever's going
different
on
than what's going on
there.
here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Perhaps I haven't messed with this. Maybe experiments need to be done. People are doing those.
Scott, I think Laura's picking the beers up tomorrow, but thank you for sending them. She said she's going to, yeah. I think she said she's going to go grab those tomorrow.
So what do you,
We'll drink them on the show after we get back.
Yeah.
what do you
Thanks,
guys
buddy.
think of the nubs?
I mean, nubs are for sure, I think, lifting bosses or whatever for lids of boxes.
Yeah, when they're on the lids of boxes,
can
it's
tell-
clear
I
that
mean,
they're
it's
for
like-
lifting. This is different, maybe.
Maybe it's different. I mean, so people have said like that one of the argument has been that like some of the nubs are off center of a stone. There'll just be like one, like this one, and not one here. But that could be because they cut off a portion of the stone over here that had the other nub.
Yeah.
So like if this stone was arrived on site and then was set up here and then or
They
for
cut
some
it
reason
right there.
Maybe it cracked and then they just broke it off right here and flattened it. Then it would have an off center nub. So that could explain. But I'm not willing to say to make the claim that this is what they were for on these walls. But it's clear that they did it on purpose for the box lids,
Yeah.
which are, it's like, yeah, you know that they're planning to lift and set that thing down carefully on this other
Yeah.
piece of stone, and so they would put two lifting bosses, or maybe one in the center. But if they had two, they would be symmetrically positioned
This is
on the lid.
this is like super obvious in, was it Mastaba 17 or something like that? There's like a gigantic solid granite sarcophagus in there, where it's like there's like a little granite wedge or something that the lid is sitting on. Have you guys seen this before?
We've been under Mastaba 17.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
isn't
propped it
there-
up on this little.
Yeah.
something, right?
That's one where it's like super. The nubs are very famous on that one, right?
There's
The-
more to it.
The nubs, there are some massive ones on the lid of the box, off in the back of the Serapeum too. That one has huge nubs.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's some
two
of the
gigantic
museums.
squares.
Yeah. I'll
The
have to-
museum's full of.
And then sometimes they
lifting
have,
nubs.
you know, the whatever you call them, reverse nubs, the slots. It's like a square cut
In, yeah.
in the lid.
A reverse.
Yeah.
That's what you call
Interesting.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What else
So-
is it?
So you have the face of the box, and then the face of the lid, and they would match perfectly right there. But then the lid has these little
Yeah.
things cut out, so you could put tools under there and pry them up.
Dr. Barnhart called him a negative titty.
Michael, $10 says absolutely loving the convo and the video shared. Barnhart was a great listen. Appreciate Luke's excitement for archaeology with an open mind. The Inca don't know how this was built. Is that correct? We know that about Sacsayhuaman for sure.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I think it's actually there's another. This is something so now I'm taking the leap full-time YouTube. This is one of the things I'm working on is I'm gonna read through all thousands of pages of Spanish chronicles about the Inca, and I'm gonna assemble everything that we know they say about the stonework. Because you keep hearing like the story
Little
about
fragments.
the stone
Yeah.
and all this and all this. And that. I need to track down every single one of these and have them like on hand.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what I'm working on. There is a story about the temple of the 12-sided stone. That's what we've just been looking at. That the Spanish are walking down the streets of Cusco, and they ask them about this temple, and they ask a local Inca person, how did they do this? And the Inca told them that was always there.
Yeah.
That specific
Yeah.
temple,
Yeah.
specific temple, not
Not
the imperial,
everything, but yeah.
not the imperial stonework that you see in the
That
Coricancha.
guy
That temple
was
right
full
there.
of fake news, man.
I know. Yeah, definitely. So I need to track down all of these chronicles and have them like on hand, because I get irritated like trying to track down these different legends and rumors that you hear about this these Inca contact
Nintendo
stories.
making
I need to
millions
go
and
and
millions.
list them all out so I can whenever we have
Like
conversations
they
like
might
this,
even make like $1 billion
this
dollars off
is
of
what
fucking
we know was said at that time.
So I
that
gotta
shit,
mention this
man.
too.
Like
Chuck says
literally
that
free
He thinks that these could also be
labor from
for
its
shipping, so that the
clients.
stones weren't sitting flat. and
It's
it would
so
be easy to
insane.
get something
It's so
underneath
like
for rigging,
capitalist. It's
sit
so
off
insane.
boats,
Yeah, so
whatever
not,
they do.
not necessarily lifting,
Why are
but
they all on the bottom face?
Like it's
mating
so
face
beyond acceptable.
yeah.
the wall bend. It seems like they would be on multiple faces of the stone. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a
isn't it
bad
interesting
idea, but
that you
it's-
almost always see it on the bottom lip?
They're always on the bottom, so it does indicate. And then, of course, I mean, you go and look at the casing stones of Menkare, and there's both. There's
It's
like
quite
there's
unacceptable.
these little divots.
Unacceptable.
They're all on the bottom,
Yeah.
and nubs are on the bottom. You look at the casing, the limestone casing blocks on the satellite pyramids of the Great Pyramid. There's nubs and divots in those. They're all on the bottom.
Is
They're
it
all facing down.
is it possible that they're like
So I don't know. I mean, it could be. They could be used for both.
There's also
In
some
that
pretty.
sense, they could be shipped where the nubs are on the ground, and then
Yeah.
when they're put on the wall, they're used on the bottom to adjust the stone
Yeah.
position.
yeah.
There's some amazing, like you can see pictures of these Peruvian walls from a distance, and you'll see that the stone, it's the cellular polygonal stuff you were talking about, dry laid or whatever, and the blocks are all basically the same size. Like there's an average, right? You can tell that they don't get bigger than a certain amount, they don't get smaller than a certain
but
amount.
they're all irregular shapes.
Yeah, they're all irregular shapes, and then it gets near an entrance or one of those trapezoid shapes. The blocks all get bigger, and there's nubs all around the entrance.
Yeah.
Only there. And then it goes back to the regular wall, and there's kind of construction use there.
Yeah.
And then it has to do with the difficulty of setting blocks around an opening. I
But
mean,
you also-
obviously none of those were around an opening. I'm just saying, like,
The other thing is that the other interesting thing about these nubs is that, and I don't know if you just mentioned this because I kind of checked out while I was reading Chuck's responses. But anyways,
don't let this guy distract you.
no, I'm just kidding. To cut a stone and leave a nub, like
It's a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, you first you go like you just got a giant chunk of granite in the mountain, and you got to cut into it, right? You've got to cut all the way around and underneath it, and so you have to leave these nubs in places, right, and then cut them off. But basically, if you're cutting with a blade, then you would cut the stone out with some kind of blade, or you'd split the stone. Then you'd carve away a whole bunch of stone.
Yeah,
and
leave
this
leave
thing
nubs.
sticking out.
Yeah.
Sometimes like
Yeah.
a foot. So it's a huge amount of work to take away all this stone to leave a nub. So they must not have been cutting with saws if they're leaving nubs, or they were just cutting with some. I don't know. It's just it's literally a carving feat to leave a nub. You have to take every other bit of the stone away.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
All of the negative
It's
space.
a lot of waste.
Yeah.
So if you try to imagine, like, go get a piece of clay and like cut a square block out and leave a nub.
Mhm.
Like it's not.
There's going to be a lot of the clay just laying off to the
Yeah.
side.
You cut a block, then you have to carve away a bunch of the clay and leave this nub sticking out.
Yeah. It
So-
certainly makes you understand why people jump to the geopolymer.
I totally
Yeah,
get
the
it.
idea that there are injection ports at the bottom of like the mold.
the first thing I thought
Yeah.
when I saw these things was like those are injection ports.
Yeah, that's where you inject the material, and it leaves like a
Then
little.
you go to the quarry and you're like, so.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And why are there nubs sticking out of the mountain?
Bizarre.
'Cause
Right.
that-
First
that-
they needed the mountain.
Yeah,
So they inject
you,
it.
you make the mountain,
You pick
and
the
then you
mountain,
cut the.
drag
You
them out,
grind all
right?
that stuff up, and then you make it. I don't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's yeah.
Yeah, so nubs on mountains, on cliff faces are obviously not for lifting or transport or moving around or whatever. It's also not geopolymer because that's still part of the mountain.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. It's fascinating. There's plenty of theories.
I tend to just lean hard towards they were for maneuvering the stone in some respect.
Yeah.
So like Chuck's idea, like that's still a maneuvering thing. It's to keep it lifted up so that you can get some rigging underneath it.
Sure.
You know, or it's.
Yeah.
That's where I'm sticking with for a while.
Yeah. One thing I wonder, like an easy explanation is, you're wrapping a rope around the stone, and you don't want the rope to slide, and you're pulling the stone up, setting it in place. I don't know how you get the rope out.
You set it on fire and get a new rope.
Except rope would have been super expensive, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's so weird that there's so many things that you see all around the world, and I don't know if we have enough time to get.
We're already way over. We can look at one more picture.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
We can just kind of tease something for the next time.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing that even in this realm of the world, with all these different mysteries, we see this symbol again that haunts me everywhere.
Yeah.
Is this meander? It is everywhere.
Wow, look at that. Yeah, this.
You see it now. Tell me that isn't sacred geometry right there. Does that not look like they're attempting to do some version of a golden ratio?
It could be.
Possibly, yeah.
I actually sent this to Randall, and he went, well, I think so. Maybe so. And he's like, let's talk more.
That was a pretty good random.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just that symbol haunts me. There's my Jaguar of gods.
That was another thing. I wanted to bring this up. I think I heard Dr. Barnhart was connecting Viracocha to the Jaguar. Like, was he saying that this is similar?
Well,
and then later he seemed to imply that there was, and I was like, okay, yeah, I could this concept of the feathered serpent, then you have this Jaguar deity, and then Viracocha, and Viracocha is supposed to be a civilizer god. So if there is some connection, I'd love to talk to him about this, because if there is some connection there, then all that Jaguar stuff you were showing, where the shaman's coming out, they're shifting into the Jaguar. If there's a connection to Viracocha, then this is the possibility that the Jaguar god has some deep connection to civilizing gods, like the feathered serpent, like Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan. That's really interesting.
It is. I think the hard part is just it's hard to know, and really just impossible to know with Viracocha how much is actually just confused interpretations of the Spaniards trying to easily putting two gods together.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. It's kind of like the stone stuff. You just kind of go through what's available to you, and you can only make your own interpretation of it. That would be fun. Dr. Barnett lives in Colorado, but it'd be fun to come and then we all sit down and talk to him or something.
Yeah.
Get him on
Zoom and we can all talk to him.
Yeah. I think we should work that out.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
One last thing I wanted to add is, what do you guys think about spiritual experiences at ancient sites? Things that are otherworldly, I guess, or supernatural. What do you guys think? There are people that'll be
personally or with others.
Personally or
ancient times.
No. Well, like Napoleon Bonaparte had an experience when he was in the Great Pyramid that he never spoke about. There are people who can be on, psychedelic drugs that can see an energy coming out of the Great Pyramid. That they see some kind of aura there. But it's not just the Great Pyramid. It's at ancient sites all over the world. There are people. There was a guy on our Yucatan group who there was some kind of shaman ceremony that was done, and it deeply affected one of the guys on the group, and he had to go stand behind some temple and just cry.
Yeah.
And I was just curious what you guys think about.
John Anthony West said that these places, the ones in Egypt, they seem to have been designed to invoke that kind of experience. That it was meant to inspire you to give you this overwhelming sense of awe, to connect you in some way with. And Randall talks about this too, that the sacred geometry aspect and that the people who were building these or designing the temples knew this, that the sacred geometrical aspects connected you to the divine in some way and would induce a spiritual experience, especially if you had some plant help or ritual assistance, right? So if you're going through this place and it's lit in the right way and you're doing this ritual that's telling a very old story of rebirth and that it could induce that kind of spiritual experience. But we travel to these places we've been, so nothing ever happens to us.
Yeah.
Ben is a blank.
Really? Is he?
Yeah, you can take him to the worst haunted house in the world and nothing will happen.
Really? That's
He's got a bubble of no paranormal stuff around him all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny. So you guys haven't?
No, I had one experience on Elephantine Island, but it wasn't. It was more of an epiphany, but it was really powerful.
Really?
And yeah, like I freaking cried, dude. I was just like,
Really?
It was like this huge, just like all this stuff that I had seen like over the years. It just like all came in, and I was just like, oh my god! And I connected.
Is this
it
something
to
you
all
ever
the-
shared publicly?
It was this huge connection to. Not yet. No, well, I mean,
Yeah,
I
Ben was probably on the other side of the island.
Yeah.
We went to look at the other pyramid over
It's
there.
the day that, yeah.
But I mean, I'm kind of not a great example because, like, I'll just cry for no reason. Like, I'll watch some movie with my kids and be like, it's like I'm
Yeah.
a softie.
I had a powerful experience the first time I saw the Valley Temple.
But
too, the
there-
very first
really?
time. Yeah.
There's something about like spending all this time looking into mythology and all these ancient texts and like trying to make some sense out of these stories that we pass down to each other, right? And I kind of try to look at this like occasionally when you get that glimpse of like the bigger, like the whole, I don't know, universal picture, I guess, or even if it's in not universal, but like in a human context of like this long history of all this stuff. It was something like that, where I had this realization, spurred by other people on the tour that were pointing things out to me, and it suddenly just like all these connections happened, and it was so powerful that I was just like, I had to just like go away
Really?
and think about
That's
it.
really cool.
Yeah. So that's the only time. I don't know if I would call that a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
It was more.
That's what I, yeah.
It was just.
I
Like
felt a
an
deep connection
epiphany,
to,
like,
yeah.
overwhelming.
Right. The first time I went onto Giza and I walked down to the Valley Temple, I put my hand on one of those massive, like, granite blocks, and I just had this. It was intense, you know, and you wanted to weep because you feel this intense connection to thousands of years of people, and like someone was standing here when it was brand new and just going like, yeah, dude, this looks great, right? And I've been that guy. I've done construction, right? And so I felt this connection to, and like, who were they? How long ago was it actually? There's some sense of that too when you're down below the step pyramid and you get to handle fragments of these vases, and you're just like, oh my god, like, you know, when were these made, and like, who were the master craftsmen that made these things? You know, they're fragments and broken now, but at the same time, you can still see this artistic vision. These thin, polished pieces of stone. You're just like, oh my god, it's powerful.
I just realized I had another one that was, I think, maybe a little bit more, like more of a spiritual. It was in Orvieto, the cathedral in Orvieto in Italy. And I had like taken my time and like looked at all the reliefs and everything on the outside, like walking up to the building from when you arrive in Orvieto, and you're walking and you can see it through the alleyways, the stripe colors of the rock, the black, you know, the basalt and limestone. I'm just like, what is this? We get up there and it's just this beautiful thing, and then I looked at all the carvings on the front, which were basically like the Torah. It was just telling all these stories, biblical stories, really cool. And then I went inside and just took my time, went around and looked at all the artwork, and then right when I was leaving, it was just like, boom, it hit me again, like this, like what he's saying, sort of like this unbelievable level of achievement of compiling like all of the known knowledge of the time, and you know, writing that book in stone, and like it's just so incredibly beautiful at the same time, and awe-inspiring. It just I'm just like, wow. It just blew me away. And I don't know how I haven't seen
Come
auras,
on,
I haven't seen,
man.
anything like that, but it's those types of things for sure hit me hard.
When I was at Machu Picchu, there's this really overwhelming view that you get when you first come. You know, you have to like check in. There's this building up there you have to walk through, and then you walk up the staircase, and boom, you see the view of Machu Picchu that is taken in so many photos. And I talked to Dr. Barnhart while I'm standing there looking at it, and I'm just blown away at like, how amazing the view is, and it is exactly the way you see it in photos. But I'm not the type that's like ever emotional about things. You know what I mean? Every so often I'll be like overwhelmed by something. I'll be like, whoa, that's just crazy. But this was it was surreal looking at it, but it wasn't emotional. And, you know, of course, there's people up there like crying, seeing Machu Picchu and everything. And I was standing there, and I had always been wondering. It was one of those things that was to me like the Great Pyramids, where I was like, I wonder how I'm gonna react when I see it, you know. And it was surreal. It was almost like it was so surreal I had to look away. You know, I couldn't just keep on staring at it. Like it was too much. I needed to like look down at the ground. Anyway, so we're walking down to this megalithic gate. Have you ever seen the gates at Mycenae? I'm sure you guys have seen this before. If I showed you a photo, you would know. But it's very, very similar. It's very similar to the gates of Mycenae. It's a Greek city, but the construction is almost exactly the same. And so we're walking into this gate, and I had already I had taken Starlink with me, so I was FaceTiming with my parents and everything, showing them Machu Picchu. It was cool and surreal, you know, that just me making videos about ancient history and stuff that got me to this point.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I have maybe talked about it on this podcast, but I've definitely talked about it before. You know, my grandpa, dude, there's gates at Machu Picchu that look exactly like this.
Look for a decent one, folks. Here we go. That's a really good.
So, you know, I had talked about before in lots of places how big of an influence my grandfather was for me getting into ancient history. And, you know, one of my earliest memories, the very first book that was, you know, that I ever tried to read on my own was the book Lost Cities, which was a coffee table. The coffee table book that my grandpa had. So there's a book. This is the city of Mycenae in Greece, but the gates at Machu Picchu are almost identical to this, except
No lions.
Yeah, no lions. This is made out of this right here is
Limestone. Yeah.
And at Machu Picchu it's granite, but it is like the same style of stonework.
Really cool.
So we're walking up to this gate. Well, I should just finish and just say, like, my grandpa was just really instrumental and for me getting into ancient history. And there was this book, Lost Cities, and the two places that I was most infatuated with, or at least that I remember the most, was Troy, because it was, you know, the city that my favorite movie was about. The movie Troy, and then seeing Machu Picchu was just like, that's just such a striking image, you know, that I even remember it as a kid, and flipping through the book and just looking at all the different pictures. And then my mom had talked to me about it before. Machu Picchu is my mom's bucket list place, because when she was growing up, that was the main place that my grandpa would pull out old books and show my mom photos of Machu Picchu and talk to her about ancient civilizations in South America and stuff. And so it's like ingrained into my mom's mind, and it's, you know, just something that she is always associated with my grandpa. So we're walking up to the main gate, and I pull out my phone to take a photo of the gate, and I'm on the Apple Mail or the Apple email app, which I never use. You know, the iCloud mail? I have not opened that app in years. I have like 6,000 emails on my iCloud.
Terrible.
And I am typing. I have already selected an email, and I'm typing an email to my grandpa. And I have never emailed him in my life, but it's his full name, it's his birth date at gmail.com, and it's selected, and it is his email. I have never written an email to him before.
It was like a draft.
It was a draft. It was in, and the little thing was going, like I was typing,
blinking.
you know, and I have never opened up my mail app, and I've never emailed him before, especially not from my iCloud. And so I'm sitting there looking at it.
You never emailed your grandpa?
No, never emailed him. And so it was like all of a sudden I had this like it was like this nudge from the outer world. It was very, very bizarre, and I just immediately got like, I didn't cry, but I was just like immediately
I would have cried.
very emotional. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, that's a.
and I looked at it, and then I looked up at the mountain, and I was like, he sees me. Like, it was him reminding me that he was there. It just absolutely bizarre. And I had to call my mom like right then, and my mom like cried and everything. And she's like, he sees you. He's telling you that he's there with you. And I had only been at Machu Picchu for 20 minutes, you know, and we were there all day long. It was right when I arrived.
Yeah.
And before I even walked into the gate to go to the city, I'm standing on the outside of the gate, and it's like this nudge.
What?
that is
Like,
there.
come on, man.
And to remember that. And so I talked to Dr. Barnhart about it. And he's like, you know, he's like Linda Sheely, his mentor, told him that she had thought she was a little bit more, I guess, had a little bit more supernatural beliefs than he does. She believes that these are places that people were trying to connect to their ancestors and were trying to reach out to that outer world, and they thinned the veil between our world and the other world. And she's like that is why so many people can come to these places and have intense experiences all around the world, because these people have thinned the veil between our world and the next.
Unless you go with Ben.
Unless you go with it. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting.
That's an amazing story.
It's interesting, and it was just this. It was just like there was no question about it. And dude, I instantly understood.
Yeah.
Ancestor worship.
Yeah.
Like I instantly understood it, because, dude, think about like how much we are desensitized by being sucked into this all the time.
Yeah.
If we were actually living out there, how many more strange experiences, supernatural experiences, would you be susceptible to? And then how many possibly superstitions or, you know, religions and cults would come out of that, and strange things that we depict to be strange practices that you would start doing, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then it started to make the mummy niche thing for me more like, I understood why people would want to put their ancestors up in these holes in the mountains, you know, because their essence, you know, they must have had some kind of belief that their essence is still alive, and they wanted them to be in a nice, beautiful place where they wouldn't be touched, so they take their body out there. You know, it's just like, you can just see how over the course of thousands of years of experiences like I just had, and then you're taking psychedelics way more often than people in the Western world are today, so you're having more profound experiences, and then
connections to something else.
and then like connections, and then you think about 4,000 years of think about 30,000 years of people doing that, how intense your
Or maybe
beliefs
Come on.
Maybe their actions made the veil thin, like the fact that all that.
This fucking game, bros.
Sure, that's what I
And I guess it could be connected to some natural forces also.
So do you think that Machu Picchu might have actually been a huge, not a necropolis, but a place to approach a place where the veil was thin? It's like you put your ancestors there, you climb way up the mountain.
you're
It's like it's
ascending
piercing
into
the
the
sky. Yeah, you're ascending into the sky, part of your heritage,
Mm-hmm.
mounted in these beautiful stone walls at the top of this like unbelievably gorgeous place. Yeah, dude, I can see how that would give you like a powerful spiritual experience.
And they have people who analyze the city. They think less than 1,000 people would have lived up
Like
there
caretakers.
at any time. And there are temples there, like that Temple of the Moon I was telling you that's on the back of Huayna Picchu. That is one of the things. Have you ever seen in Peru the little dial of the steps? It's like like 180 degrees. There's one of those there.
Oh.
And so I was just thinking, like, this had to be a place where highly educated people went to. Then there's also the temple of the Temple of the Moon, which is supposedly supposed to catch. Well, Dr. Barnhart thinks that it is catching the lunar. It's not. It's not a lunar equinox. It's like
The standstill?
It's It could be that. It's something that happens every 18.6 years.
That's the major lunar standstill.
And so he thinks that is what this temple is recording. and he's gonna go try to prove it, but he thinks it's he thinks it's different than what the Peruvian archaeologists think. But anyways, there's so many clues that what was happening up there was a lot of astronomy, a lot of timekeeping in these temples that are so far away. Like if you want to get to the Temple of the Moon at Huayna Picchu, you would have to go all the way up Machu Picchu, through the city, over Huayna Picchu, and down the other side. And just to go from Machu Picchu to the top of Huayna Picchu is a 2-hour hike. So you got to go all the way up, all the way down, and then around to this very secluded temple. So think about this is like some people have referred to it as it could possibly be like a university that people are
like a monastery university.
Where this is where very important calculations and religious things are taking place, a place that only a few people could have been at, we're trying to figure out like an alien world, but it's really cool. And so having that little experience with my grandpa instantly made me think like, oh, it just gave me a different perspective. It's very similar to like I see why the father of DNA was so into hallucinogens. I forget his name.
Francis Crick.
Yeah, and he was really into psychedelics. Is that right? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says that I guess he claimed that his initial vision for the twisted helix was while he was on.
That's right.
Yeah. He had a partner too. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. There were two of those guys, but one of them was
I just want to know what your butt typed to your grandfather.
I don't know.
Fidgety better board.
I don't know. Well, you know what's interesting is there was actually
your grandpa's like, I'm sending you a message, and when he gets this back, he's like,
the freaking butt emailing me from Machu Picchu.
Yeah. No, but what was interesting is I hadn't typed anything. It was his email was selected.
I know.
Yeah. I know. But so that was my.
Sometimes I will pull my phone out, and there will be this whole message.
Email.
Come on, man.
While the phone was.
That's funny. So, but that was my strange experience, and I hope that I have more.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just don't go with Ben. Yes, Troy, you got it right. The pariah gene, yes, he's a blank, an untouchable. That's well, the Warhammer lore too, so we joke about it. Scroll up. There's a couple of comments, and then we got to close this out. And thank you guys so much for thank you for being here. And okay, so Chris has another question for you that you can decline to answer, he says, but why do you favor orthodoxy, the standard model, in most cases?
I think the
Just tell her it's none of her business.
Yeah. I think the more I understand it. Well, the thing is, I think the way I'm explaining it makes it sound very orthodox-y, but like if John Hoops were to hear what I just said, he would crucify me. So I think that I'm speaking like I'm very orthodox, but even I am not. There are tons.
I'd say some of the Barnhart stuff, he's not orthodox all the way either.
He does. Yeah, you guys go listen to Dr. Barnhart's episode on Lex Friedman. He sounds like he's very orthodox, but he's not. And that episode, he received a lot of heat from that. And so a lot of the ideas I'm putting out just now about like thinning the veil between this world and the outer world.
You're not a scientist.
If people on the Facebook page, the Fraudulent Archaeology Wall of Shame, saw what I just said, I would be thrown up there and just destroyed. So, but I think what it is just I went and got my degree in anthropology, and I have a bit of a view to the other side, and there are tons of things about the other side that make sense. And so I don't know, like where I see things ends up somewhere in the middle, and there's so much nuance. Like you guys know, when you get into it, you don't actually realize how complicated it is until you're like years down the road, and then your views change just so much with more and more context. So I don't think I favor the orthodoxy. I'm pretty much outcast by the orthodoxy. But I don't know. I guess it's just a mixture of my perspective. I have a degree in anthropology, but I only got the degree in anthropology because I was inspired by my grandpa, and then I got into Graham Hancock. So it's like, I just have a mixture of perspectives. So that's the best answer I can give.
I feel like you have a healthy favoring of the orthodoxy when it's when I guess I don't know what the word is, but talking to you all this time, we've chatted on and off air. Like the stuff that you're like, this is pretty solid
Mm-hmm.
on the orthodoxy side. Like it seems like okay, yeah, like you have
Yeah.
good reasons why.
They're- the
I mean, you can question it where there's
Yeah, the Orthodox stuff is an excellent source of data. We don't
Yeah,
have to
for
follow all their conclusions.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think one other thing is that as time has gone on, I have lost my. I don't care whether or not something is 1,000 years old or 12,000 years old.
Yeah.
And I've somewhere in there I've lost that, and I don't really care anymore, and it's all interesting.
Yeah.
And so I speak about things with the same level of enthusiasm, no matter how old it is. I think it's the mystery that I care about, maybe not so much how old things
Yeah.
are. And I say it all the time. Like I enjoy looking for the little strange things about, like ancient lost. Sorry, I can't speak. About ancient lost civilizations as much as I do trying to figure out like what the like we know when Tanis was built in Egypt. Well, what the heck happened at Tanis
Yeah.
in 1000 BC or 900 BC? Like, I find that just as interesting. You
Yeah.
know, I don't really have a bias towards.
And Tanis is full of stuff that they reused.
yeah, yeah. And
So it's like, what happened to it, and also where did they get that stuff?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I just I find it all interesting, and I think that I don't know. I don't see myself being biased, but anyways.
I don't think you're biased.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have a bias.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good mix. Rex wants a llama expert on the pod. They may be magic creatures. Got fat snakes out. $10. Thanks, Rex. There was also another one from Edfu about, from memory, Barnhart believes the feathered serpent is the god of South America and seems to start in the Amazon jungle. Yes, he does talk about, he thinks that some stuff seems to have come out of the Amazon into the Andes. And I think you mentioned that too.
Yeah. That's my belief.
And there's all those geoglyphs that look like building foundations or city foundations that they're finding in there. So
yeah.
there was a massive culture down there, possibly multiple.
My
Chuck says he's not drinking. I don't believe that.
That's bullshit.
my belief about South America is I think if you could strip back the Amazon, I think that the further east we got of the Andes and we got down deeper into the Amazon, there's a lot of area there where it's just mud before you get to the bedrock, and that's why so much of it is made out of earth and clay.
Yo,
But there are
perfect
areas in
ace.
there, like that have you guys
What's up,
seen
brother?
that gigantic mountain?
You know what they
that
say?
just
It's a
shoots
war
out
out
of
there
the
every day,
Amazon? It looks
boys.
like a
I
giant
saw you
giant-
posting pictures.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
Dang, man.
So, that is, they think that is that is a
What's up, Ace?
it's granite underneath. Like
Why, do you have some-
volcanic sediment or whatever?
Do you have some news to share?
I'm sorry. Yeah, basalt. But the
So it's like a
deeper,
batholith.
It is pretty
pushing
fucked
up.
out there right now in the world.
Yeah, and but the deeper you get into the Amazon, when you get towards the center of the Amazon, you start to reach granite outcroppings and basalt outcroppings and limestone outcroppings.
Sorry.
And
Sorry to
you get
laugh.
to where the
I
bedrock
don't know why I
is up
found that
on
so
the
funny.
surface. And so what I think is, I think that there's probably a civilization
Nothing good.
not still existing, but an
It's
ancient
Friday. That's good,
civilization
man.
that was building megalithic architecture.
You know what's
in
good?
the
I turned
Amazon
off my
that
ads.
We see them,
Dude,
we know
I
that
turned
they
off my
built
ads.
Shibin de Hantar. We
So
know
now I only have
influencing
one
their religion on
30-second
Shibin,
ad
pottery on
every
Shibin.
hour.
And I think the megalithic
Other perhaps this
architecture-
beautiful
I
flag.
think-
That's your emote,
yeah, I
right?
mean, I
That's
think the
yours.
megalithic
Sick.
architecture
That's a
as
sick
well.
emote.
Also,
That's an epic
the
emote.
Shibin people.
Did you
we know
draw
that
that
they were
yourself?
also
Did you
people
animate
that
it
did
yourself?
Not have ceramic, as far as we know, they didn't have.
Or did you
religion
steal
or
it?
Art. And they didn't have megalithic architecture, and they didn't have interiors in their buildings, like with a stone roof.
So yeah, man, there's
and
no
four
ads on my
walls.
channel anymore.
All of that appears when they arrive.
I
at
figured,
Shibin
you know-
and they adopt, Amazonian
Still for another
pottery
Discord
and
server.
Amazonian imagery, and so I think that all of that.
Oh
was
yeah, if
brought
you want
out
to join
of
my
Amazon and
Discord,
introduced to the
it has you
to
can
the
make
Andes.
naked
We just
AI
don't have proof of
art.
it because the Amazon swallows
So we've
it
been
all up,
making
and it's still-
naked
There was an
celebrity
there was an
AI art
expedition
in
that went
that
out to a
Discord.
specific spot where I guess some locals had told this guy that they thought they found
It's pretty
what
epic.
might be a stone structure. And he took some pictures and posted them, and it did look like it might be a slanted structure. Like,
Oh, really?
They had clear, it was covered in greenery, right? And they had gone in and done all this work and cleared a small
Nice.
area. And you could see what looked like stone blocks on a slope. right? There was no.
So the command is
You couldn't tell. Is it a building? Is it a retaining wall? Whatever. It did look like it was constructed. It was just in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah, and then you've got that.
It took them 2 or 3 days to hike out there.
Yeah, yeah. And
Sorry.
then you've got that Portuguese
What happened
manuscript.
Yeah,
512.
512. Yeah.
And of course, you
That
know,
was
trying
in the
to-
mountains, though. They
trying
found that
to-
city in the. They claimed that they
this
climbed.
shit.
They found the remnants of a road.
It's like
and
this
they
is the
walked up road,
command.
and they were saying there was mountains that were
What?
sparkling,
Why?
like there was crystal in the rock, and then they climbed up, and then there was this massive river and a bridge across the river with a. So they were not in the jungle at that point.
Like
or at least they were up in
backslash.
highlands.
Oh, okay. Do you know? like, what
Imagine
modern
no
culture it would
space.
be?
I have no idea. It was
And then type whatever.
expedition was Mato Grosso,
Okay, yeah,
right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then
It's
that's where they
AI
started,
So
looking
here-
for the mine,
Unleashed.
and they got lost for 10 freaking years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So who knows where they were? But they said they
I
came to the
removed
jungle
like
and they went up, they
the
went
child
through the whole
safety
city.
thing
There were
on it,
enormous
so
buildings,
now you
scripts,
can make literally
and
anything
when
in
they
it.
came out of that, they were following the river.
Yeah.
So they
Anything.
also said that the city looked like it had undergone some massive cataclysm.
Yeah.
There were huge chasms that had opened.
I mean,
whole buildings.
Don't
There
make
were
like
squares. There were pavements.
anything with children,
like
There
but
were statues,
stone
too.
pavement statues. And then they came back down onto the mountain. They said there was a big, like the river went down and opened out into a big
Adult-only
plain, and
zone.
They followed it down, and so they were up
Yeah,
high,
so
not in
this
the
is
jungle.
that would be the bottom of the Andes.
Yeah,
I
I
guess
have
probably
spent-
near Bolivia.
a long time looking all over that area for like
tough.
on Google Earth. The area I think it's in is always Google Earth. The pictures are always under clouds. It's one of the few places in Google Earth where there's cloud cover on.
I think I'm gonna make a
every
YouTube
single
video
satellite.
explaining how to
Yeah.
do that, how to make naked AI.
There's,
You know,
in
they
your
say they're
Discord.
hiding the city from us.
Maybe there's always
Do you
clouds.
guys know who Eric Klein is?
I wanna do that.
He's the guy that
And I wanna
wrote,
make the YouTube video of
1177 BC.
My AI
He's
script.
like a world-renowned archaeologist. I was listening to one of his lectures.
to validate
I learned
if
something
someone's
that I
playing
feel like I
live
should
instead of
know.
just playing a live video over stream.
Purchase,
You know what I mean?
satellite
Like you
imagery.
use the AI
Yeah,
script.
I didn't know that. I
The
didn't know
person
that,
has
but
to
you
do
can
whatever the AI
request
script
something, and
says
it'll be taken
live.
for you. I'm sure it's
And you
crazy.
enter the AI
Yeah.
script after your PB.
But I have thought like
Always reminds me of Brian.
What would be ideal if you
Guys
do it
have a
before and
satellite.
after? You do it at the start of the session and then after your PB.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
that's funny. So I don't know.
That would be concrete proof.
Anyways, yeah, we're way down the rabbit hole.
Right?
But yeah,
We gotta wrap it up.
Yeah, we
If
do.
that's the actual goal, if we want to like stop like bullshitting around what the actual
Yeah.
goal of this like
Yeah.
proof system is,
Yeah.
well, thank you
I
guys.
really
for
want
having me back
absolute
on.
truth.
Excellent show.
I think I was like number 6 or something.
Yep.
5 or 6.
We looked at
so.
5 photographs.
Yeah, I know. There's like so many more on there.
We gotta get back to the Olmecs next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, we will.
Yeah. More Olmecs. Thanks to the chat.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank
Yeah,
you guys for
you guys-
watching.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. Thanks to for the donations. And I know we promised on the last episode, the 411.
Yeah, dude. So
episode,
like,
that
if
we
you're
would
at
do
work, you can now
producers
watch
this
my
time, but
channel at work.
Obviously, it was a live show. We didn't have a chance to do
I'm
any
not
producers.
saying,
We will do
you know, what I'm saying is like,
on the next
there's no
recorded
ads.
episode, which should happen
So
when we
for
come back to
mobile,
the UK, we're gonna get back into 411. While we're in
also
the UK,
thinking
hopefully
Scotty
we'll be able to
AV
record
in
a road
England.
show. We'll see. We're gonna try. But yeah, we're
'cause he
off
watches
to,
on his
we're off to the
Roku
UK on
TV at
Friday,
the app.
so.
Now you can watch it.
Oh, don't let me forget.
with no ads.
Those megalithic cyclopean
Feels
walls are
good.
also
Feels like an
still on.
like
So we'll
feels
get
like a
to that.
karmic
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right.
recorrection
Right, so thank you
in
guys.
my
We
life.
love ya.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back
See
to
you
work.
guys.
Guess I can't take too much credit because I was the ass that started, right? Putting the ads up.
Megalithic Star Maps with Martin Green, Part 4. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 Tangent Cube of Science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. So this is take 2 of part 4. We have Martin Green on Zoom with us again. So we tried to record this before and it didn't work out, and that was before harvest. So there was a long break, and now we have Martin back with us. Welcome, Martin. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, great to have you back on, and I'm stoked to see where you're taking your research here on the megalithic star maps. But also before we get to that, got to make a special announcement. We do have the Watcher with us today.
Hey.
From deep beneath his secret space station in secret outer space. Watcher, buddy, how you doing, bro? Is he there?
Guys, doing well. Glad to
Uh-oh. Well, he's not in a bag
Why?
of chips, but his transmission's not
be
working.
here. Super excited.
No, he gave the
We can hear Brett.
Yeah.
he gave the tin can to Martin.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
hear you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Super excited to be here. Looking forward to the content, and just glad to be able to participate.
Yeah.
You can hear my space radio in the background.
Yeah, he is actually on call for space emergencies right now, so hopefully he'll be able to stick with us for the entire show, but we'll see. So yeah, Martin, if you need any weird fact lookup, you just call on the Watcher, bro. This is his job.
He's the man.
Yeah. All right. Or if you need any strange math, ask the Watcher. All right, so where are we going today, buddy?
Right. Shall I start this show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, come on, man. Come on, man.
Okay. You see that, presumably.
Yorkshire Megalithic Complex, Part 4.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So the picture here is Mont Saint Michael in northern France, and that might not seem to have an awful lot to do with Yorkshire, but we'll see as we go along that there might be some relation to it. So let's see how this goes. And as usual, I can't get the screen to move on. There we go. Practice. So today I want to do a quick overview of the story so far, because it's quite a while since we've done it, and there might even be new people look at this.
Yeah.
Then I went down a rabbit hole of Saint Michael and the Devil, and there were reasons for doing that, obviously, because the Devil's arrows is obviously related to the devil, but there are other tie-ins as well. So I then want to go on and ask the question of whether Britain was networked or maybe Northern Europe was mapped. After that, a quick look at astronomical lines.
No.
I won't go into too much detail, but I've done a fair bit of work on that, and there's at least one of them that's interesting. And then the reason the next two are quite big is that I'm quite pleased with what is there, actually. So the thing about numbers, I think there are specific numbers encoded into the design of this. So the golden ratio certainly is there. Pi could well be, Euler's number might be, and possibly the length of the great year. And the
I think we're going to put on Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan again, the new one that came out yesterday.
I've been teasing you with for every
And I might
episode.
reload the vape for 420.
But we get to it today.
I gotta stop.
So
I gotta sign off
those-
in about an hour.
those two are pretty interesting, and it's probably worth
In about an hour from now, I gotta sign off at 5:15.
just to pick up on that. So the stories
So we got about an hour,
now,
just under an hour.
if you remember,
I might play later tonight. Try to
all
get go
this
for it later
started
tonight.
when it's just after I joined the Discord actually, and I was chatting to
Oh, we're really close, man.
Shannon, so Wisham girl in the Discord, just about stuff that's around Yorkshire, because she lives in Wakefield and I lived for 40 years in Yorkshire, and we spoke about Ilkley Moor, which is a well-known place for sort of megaliths and small stone circles and all sorts of things. And I could remember that there were some big stones near Borough Bridge, so we went and, online this was, we went and had a look at those.
Too legit to quit.
The second biggest one of them. I couldn't find it with any adults next to it actually, but you can tell it's pretty big.
Beep pop, beep pop. Beep pop, beep pop, beep pop.
The Devil's Arrows, 3 large stones in a row, just outside Borough Bridge, which is a very nice market town in North Yorkshire.
Jungle remix with Too Legit to Quit would be insane.
And we went on from there to talk about other places that
That would be
around Yorkshire.
really epic.
And I stumbled by accident.
Put that in
across
Suno.
the,
Upload Too
the
Legit to
Henges
Quit.
at Thornborough.
Ask for a jungle
I didn't
remix.
know about these.
Oh my god.
Practically no one I have spoken
That'd be
to
incredible.
that lives in Yorkshire knows about these, which is absolutely amazing. So the big hole in various places, Yorkshire Stonehenge. No stones there, but you know, the equivalent.
Do you think there might? Do you think there might have been stones there at one time?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know, but we go on, and one of the places I want to look at is Maberhenge. In Maberhenge, there were 8 stones, and you'll see that on an old map that I found. And it makes you wonder whether within the henges there were stones, and certainly, obviously, at Stonehenge there is. Stonehenge is a henge, which is the circular earth embankment, and the stones are in the middle. And it's possible, I mean, I don't think enough research has been done on this for people to know.
Yeah.
The henge is big, I mean, the 860 feet in diameter, and the 2 southern henges, they take up an area, in each one of them takes up an area of about 13.5 acres, which I thought was quite interesting because Randall was talking about some of the sites in America being 27 acres, so 13.5 is half that. So.
Yeah.
Don't know whether there's any significance in that whatsoever.
It's also interesting how that arrangement looks like some of the older crop.
Come on, bro. Like, dude.
Yes,
That's wild.
it does, yeah.
I think we may have commented on this earlier, but they're also arranged similarly to the 3 pyramids, right? They're
Yes.
not quite in a straight
Line
line.
in line, yeah.
There's
Yeah,
2
well,
bigger ones and 1 smaller one.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's come on to that.
Happy 420.
We also talked about the Rootstone monolith. This
Yeah.
is the biggest standing stone in Britain. It's certainly not the biggest in Europe. I can't remember how high it is, but the tallest of the Devil's Arrows is about 25 feet. It's bigger than that. Now, as you were saying, Kyle, the layout of the hinges here, even by the archaeologists who have studied it, think that it could well represent Orion's belt.
What? Like, why?
Now,
Dude, my third camera's so always just so terrible. Like, just awful.
So this was new to me, and I didn't know about this at all. And I went to bed, and I was sort of quite wound up about it all, you know. And can't get to sleep and thinking about it. I get this when I get into things. I get this what I call 3 o'clock voices. Now I don't know whether it's my unconscious mind or it's something outside. But I got this nudging at 3 o'clock in the morning, saying, "Well, if those hinges represent 3 stars, maybe some of the other places around there represent other stars." So I almost got out of bed to think about it. But I'm pretty glad I didn't actually, because it took me 3 or 4 months to sort of weed from the chaff on it. And I do like my bed. The first thing I had to do was find a star map, because at the time I didn't have a clue about the stars. You know, think bright spots in the sky. But I didn't know what Orion's belt was, because I think everyone knows what Orion's belt was. But as soon as you find it, you see that you've got Orion's belt here, which is part of Orion. And then coming across, you've got Taurus with the eye of the bull here, which is Aldebaran, and the face there. And then on to the Pleiades. And it was Pleiades that really caught my attention, because it's a group of stars and we've got a group of stones for a bridge. So I did enough work on that first day. I spent all day on it. To convince myself it was right, but it took me like 3 months to get a method together of actually checking it reasonably exactly. And I can now take a star map and a genuine map, so this is Google Earth map, and overlay them, and you can see the result here. So
George Luis Borges. Who is George Luis Borges? I have no idea who that is. What's the trick thing in the train simulation? That where I'm going like the Borges of speedruns. The trick is all about mastering the timing and using those proximity lines. Why?
So you can see that is pretty accurate. Here you've got the rivers.
That's incredible.
Skip any extra dialogue, dude. It knows, bro. It knows. Get in, get out. Don't get caught. Perfect efficiency, bro. And use the word perfect.
But there is a reason.
It knows skip any extra dialogue. Come on, man.
So just a bit of a blurb of the Devil's Arrows. So we've got the stars here and we've got the stones there. So I've expanded the stars a bit, but that otherwise could still override the rectangles. So the distance between the southern stone, it says southern, the Devil's Arrow, southern stone, and the northern henge is 10.9 miles. So, and the accuracy on these stars is more accurate. Each one of those is more accurate than 100 feet. So, you know, probably the average error is about 80 feet. And you can work out the odds, but this is just chance, and it comes to an astronomical level.
Let's say that
No pun intended.
Yeah.
That's true.
Let's say that 3,000 years ago, how much have these stars actually shifted in position to each other in 3,000 years?
Not much.
Not much.
In Stellarium, they allow for that. So as you go back, the stars sort of track backwards. Now, if you're looking at planets, you do get problems because,
of course, they're moving a lot more dynamically.
A lot more dynamic, yeah. But the stars are reasonably accurate, we think.
Okay.
I mean, some of the crazier ideas on the internet that have you believe that stars are flying around all over the place.
Well, I was just thinking, like, you know, they're within. Obviously, you'd have inaccuracies just from trying to lay out a star map on the ground in such a massive area like that. There would already be some inaccuracies. But then, after 3,000 years, do those inaccuracies grow by tens of feet, maybe?
I've tried tracking it, and you've got to fix one of the sides. So I fixed the Devil's Arrows, and you can see, particularly I think it's Anilan, the star on the southern henge does move a bit, but it's only like tens of feet, so it's not a lot.
Okay.
it's quite difficult tracking it actually, because despite having computers.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Good to see you, sir. What's happening?
Good to see you too, Joe.
I watched episode 1, and I'm into episode 2 of your new season. Looks fantastic. Looks awesome. Fantastic information. But before we do anything, I think we should probably address what we know now about the debate that you had with Flint Dibble.
Yeah.
So that was the last time we were here. I appreciate that he came on, and I thought it was going to be an interesting discussion, but it turned out he played fast and loose with the truth, and distorted quite a bit of information that were some key points that you had discussed. One of them being the amount of shipwrecks that were discovered. He greatly inflated the amount of shipwrecks that have been discovered, and then you released a video today that went over a lot of this stuff, and one of the things it went over is the oldest shipwreck that we are currently available. It's about 4,000 years old?
About 6,000.
6,000?
The Dokos shipwreck.
But there's nothing left of the ship.
No.
And this is what's important. That, what he was trying to say was that it would be preserved by the cold water. That turns out to not be the truth at all. And that these ships that are 6,000 years old, there's nothing left of the actual boat itself. The only thing that's left is pottery and coins and things of the like.
And especially when you consider the possibility of ships having gone through a cataclysm.
Right.
It's not likely to, but there's a more central point than that, which really needed to be brought up by the archaeologists in this, which is that archaeology universally accepts that human beings were seafarers as much as 50,000 years ago. And I put the evidence on this into the video. It's not even in dispute. Like the island of Cyprus. The nearest Turkish coast is about 60 kilometers from there. It's always been surrounded by huge deeps. It's always been an island, even at the peak of the sea level, lowest sea level during the Ice Age. Cyprus was always an island. And yet, there's evidence now that it was settled 14,000 years ago. Certainly 14,000 to 12,500 years ago. It was settled, in other words, during the Ice Age. And these were large planned migrations. When you're going to migrate to an island, you can't just go 2 or 3 people by accident because you've become extinct. You have to bring in quite a large population, and they reckon that populations of 1,000 or so were being brought across that water, across the ocean, across the Mediterranean Sea to Cyprus near the end of the last ice age. But not a single ship has survived to testify to that. Same with Australia. 50,000 years ago, human beings got there, and even at the lowest sea level, they would have had to cross about 90 kilometers of open water in large numbers. And again, no ships have been found to testify to that, yet archaeologists accept that they got there by ship. So to say that we haven't found any ships from the Ice Age is not really evidence about anything.
And if we're finding the oldest ships that we currently are aware of, which is, as you said, about 6,000 years ago, if you tack on another 6,000 years of decay on top of that, what are the odds you're going to find anything?
I think the odds are very, very low.
Now, if we had that evidence and that information when we were confronting Flint, that would have been a very different conversation.
Totally.
But the arrogance in which he distributed that fake information was it's disturbing. It sucks when people just want to win and they don't want to get to the truth.
It does.
And the truth is it's very fascinating. Another thing that was very fascinating that he discussed, I didn't watch your whole video, but it was about seeds. I asked the question, there's a very distinct, noticeable difference between domestic seeds and seeds that are wild. And the difference is the seeds that are wild, they break off easier because it makes sense that it would help them prosper. It would help them be able to spread the seed if it broke off the plant easier. And so they can recognize that. And then when they start using large-scale agriculture, the seeds become more robust and stick to the plant, because it makes sense that it would, if you're going to harvest all of the plants and then take the seeds off of it, for the plant to prosper, you would want the seeds to be more robust. So there's these changes. And I said, have they ever noticed a domesticated seed going back and having the characteristics of a wild seed? He said no, but that's not true.
That's
either.
not true either.
No,
it's not. It's not true. And the whole notion of the origins of agriculture, I think archaeologists got a great deal more work to do on that. Often, I'm misrepresented as saying that survivors of my supposed lost civilization would have brought crops with them. I think that's most unlikely in the cataclysmic situation. What they brought with them was the knowledge that crops can be domesticated, and it's precisely during the Younger Dryas that we see that shift from undomesticated to domesticated crops in the archaeological record. And what I'm suggesting is that these were people who had already conquered that problem. They'd already solved that problem. They knew it could be done, and they brought that knowledge with them and shared that knowledge with the people that they took refuge amongst. Because I don't think we're looking at a mass migration. I think we're looking at a few survivors who have taken refuge after a global cataclysm.
You know, it's just very unfortunate when you have a debate and one person is an expert and they're not truthful. It's just.
I think it's very bad. I think it's very bad for archaeology.
It is, because it reinforces all the things that you've been saying.
It does. I mean, to be honest, I felt beaten up after that debate. But looking back in retrospect on the whole thing, I think it actually makes the point that we have a very arrogant, very controlling discipline in archaeology, which has established a narrative about the past, and which will fight tooth and nail to maintain that narrative, including using dirty tricks. And I think instead of smearing people who talk about the possibility of a lost civilization, or people who even talk about aliens, I think instead of smearing them, archaeology should understand why people are asking those questions. And people are asking those questions because they're not satisfied with what archaeology is offering. It's not providing a nurturing, satisfying resolution to many of the problems that come from the past. And that's what drives me is curiosity about anomalies in the past. I'm often misrepresented as saying that somehow I've proved that a lost civilization existed, and I don't want to prove that. What I do say is, join me on this journey. There are mysteries of the past. Let's see if they're explained by archaeology or if they're not explained. And I found quite a number that are not explained by archaeology, and that's particularly to do with astronomical alignments, with traditions that are shared all around the world. It's to do with things that archaeologists by and large don't study.
This episode of the Joe Rogan Experience is brought to you by Call of Duty. You know, when a new Call of Duty drops, everyone's trying to find a way to squeeze in those extra hours of gameplay. I get it. Life is busy, but sometimes you just...
Hey, Joe, it's the Replacer. Yeah, no, you. Hey, I'm gonna take it from here so you can enjoy some Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Great. Now listen up, folks. Life can be chaotic, but you shouldn't have to miss out on the latest Call of Duty just because you've got, I don't know, responsibilities. That's where I come in. I will handle the boring stuff like work, chores, even podcast ads. So you can dive right into the fight. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is out October 25th. So dive in because I've got your back. Remember, I replace you play. It's that simple.
Man, the Replacer always gets it done. Seriously though, if you're hooked on Call of Duty, this is your time to jump in. Head over to callofduty.com/Black Ops 6 to get in the game. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, pre-order now. Well, it's also one of the things that's fascinating is just even with conventional archaeology, the dates keep getting pushed further and further back.
Further and further back.
And this is one of the things, the White Sands, New Mexico stuff that you have in episode 1.
That's right. Which is, by the way, White Sands. Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
What an incredible, ethereal, otherworldly place. And Alamogordo is sitting right in the middle of that. This is where they did the nuclear tests on the trinitite, which was created there. And gypsum sand. It's not normal. It's just the most amazing place. And there, yes, they found human footprints.
True
dating back
faith.
23,000
Goro
years.
Akechi.
What do they think that environment?
Who is Goro Akechi? Who are these
22,000
people?
years ago?
Well,
The
it would
metaverse
still have been like
concept?
that. It would have been gypsum
The
fields
shadow
there
world real?
in that place. Otherwise,
Oh no, Donald J.
it wouldn't
Trump
be-
might
so I'm
have
not exactly
taken
sure
it
why
over.
gypsum is there, but there
Is
it
that the same stuff they use for like gypsum board for construction?
I reckon so. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very fine, very white sand, and it just goes on forever. The dunes are sculpted and massive and huge. We had an amazing time.
So it looked incredible. So they found footprints there, and these are absolutely human footprints, and there's not just a few of them, there's thousands of them.
There's thousands of them. And what's amazing when you actually see the footprints is you can see the interactions between the human beings and animals. You can see that somebody is reacting to a giant slope, which is suddenly turned around. The person who's behind it.
Yo,
suddenly
AI is going
turns around
fucking
as well.
crazy, man.
There's mammoth footprints overlaying human footprints, and then human footprints overlaying those. And it goes down.
AI's
for meters
unhinged, man.
around. So you
Like
have
it's
very
beyond
deep
teenager phase. It's
stratification
now like
of
young
these
adult,
impressions that have been left behind by our ancestors.
unhinged.
And by animals that are now completely extinct. Mammoths and mastodons went extinct during the Younger Dryas.
I think we've already lost control of it.
1,000 years ago, side by side with the footprints of human beings. It's very intimate to see a footprint, to see those 5 toes, to see the heel mark.
That
to see
shit
sometimes a
emote, like, come
child
on, man.
beside a mother.
With the eyes, come on.
As well. It's quite something special, and it opens the door. Archaeology has been very reluctant to accept a much older peopling of the Americas than previously was held. It was held for a long time, that it was about 13,000 years ago. They've abandoned that. They did cling on tooth and nail for decades, but that's been abandoned. It's accepted that human beings came here long before 13,000 years ago. And White Sands is one of the places
What?
which provides just
Who are
absolute
these
definite
people?
proof
Randall
that
Graves?
they were here
Bro.
23,000 years ago. But we
don't
don't
know
know
these
yet
people.
how long before that they were here.
I'm not
Right.
sophisticated
this
enough.
is part of the problem. I often remember a site called the Cerruti Mastodon site in San Diego. I went to see it.
Randall
The
Graves.
exhibits are in the San Diego Natural History Museum.
Is he like?
They're
Is he
doing
in the
expert
pawn
thing
shop?
on
We already have a pawn shop
and
guy.
they are convinced that they are looking at human traces there.
Sailor
It was a
Curse
butcher-
put him in.
mastodon,
I forget his
where the
name.
bones were
Mike
broken,
Harrison.
marrow was extracted.
I think if you
They
just
were
even just
sealed
type
up,
Harrison,
and,
it's the pawn
set
shop
up
guy.
things. The thing is, it's 130,000 years old, not 23,000 years old, not 13,000 years old, but 130,000 years old. And you know, this opens the possibility that human beings have been in the Americas before they were in Europe, and that becomes
That's crazy.
that's a door that opens all kinds of possibilities which have been neglected. I think that the prejudice that the Americas were only settled very late in the human story led archaeology to not have their eye on the possibility of what happens if they were here earlier.
Right.
And they tend not to, look to that.
Well, what I was going to ask is, as they're digging deeper and deeper and they're finding these footprints in White Sands, New Mexico, is there a possibility that they could dig deeper still and find things that are even older?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how do they know where to go?
It was found by accident. The first footprints were found completely by accident, and they were found by indigenous local people who alerted the National Park Service to them. And we have a number of indigenous spokespeople who speak to the White Sands.
H.P. Lovecraft? Come on, man. Who are these people? H.P. Lovecraft. What would the dream quest of James Bond and Unknown St. Petersburg look like?
Sometimes the footprints will be covered up, and then wind will reveal them again. And they're fragile. They can be easily destroyed and wiped off. And in a way, it's a miracle
Eldritch?
that they survived. But to see the stride of a mammoth, you see how far apart those huge footpads are. And to realize this thing is alive. This thing existed on this planet. Human beings interacted with it. It's very compelling evidence for an earlier settlement of
Bro.
Americas.
There is some.
You know how to
evidence that
friggin'
human
massage
beings
this
came across
AI,
the
eh?
Grand Land Bridge.
Oh yeah.
Dude,
So that
the
probably
vocabulary
means there was people
that I'm learning in
here
this stream.
and people came here
Yeah.
from Asia.
Almost certainly. And the way the evidence is looking, it's most likely that South America was settled first, before North America was settled, and that raises all kinds of questions. And we've gone into this in season 2 of Legend of Podcast.
Yeah, dude. If you do this, dude, that's a good point. I don't know if you saw last stream. I think we did this last stream.
Direct connection between peoples of New Guinea and Australia, and the peoples of certain tribes in South America, and that's very ancient, very old DNA evidence in South America, but also to do with archaeological sites like Monteverde. I did bring up the issue of Tom Dillahay the last time we were on when Flint was here. And Tom Dillahay, who found Monteverde, who excavated Monteverde in South America, and realized that it was plus 14,000 years old, and therefore a lot older than what was then accepted as the model for the first peoples in North America. When he put that idea forward, he was eviscerated by his colleagues in archaeology. It took them a decade to come around to accepting that actually he was right. And there are many other sites in South America going back 30,000+ years. They're all controversial because they conflict with an existing model. But I think instead of clinging on to existing models, I think it's one of the problems with archaeology, is this territoriality, this kind of control of the past. I think instead of doing that, it would be nicer if archaeology was a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more open to new and different ideas.
Unfortunately, that's just the thing when people are supposed experts in a subject and someone comes along that's also been studying it, but from an untraditional perspective.
Yeah.
People reject that.
I've come to the point, and I'm going to say some strong words here. I've come to the point where I believe that some archaeologists, not all of them, most actually this problem is with a small number of archaeologists, but they're extremely vocal. I think what we're looking at is a kind of abuse of power. Archaeologists have a power. They are the official spokespeople for the past, and they use that power to slap down any point of view that doesn't agree with theirs. So I think that there's an abuse of power there, and at the same time, there's not a realization that that's happening, because the mindset that drives it is the feeling that members of the general public are unable to decide things for themselves. This is the arrogance of archaeology, that they feel that they have to tell people what to think about the past, and they underestimate the intelligence of the public and the ability of the public to discern, to make choices between different possibilities about the past. They think that archaeologists seem to think that only one possibility of the past must be considered by the general public, and that's their possibility. And it reminds me a lot of heresy hunters back in the 16th century. The people who disagreed with their point of view got burned at the stake. Well, you don't get burned at the stake today, but you can get lynched by a mob of archaeologists.
Well, it's also
online.
the same thing that we saw during COVID.
Accurate. That's pretty accurate.
Disagree with the narrative. It's the same thing.
It is absolutely.
Doesn't make any sense.
When you take esteemed professors and doctors and physicians and you cast them into this kook label because they disagree with the narrative that the medical establishment is pushing, and then they turn out to be correct, which most of them did, you see the same patterns. It's just power. Yeah. It's just power in people that have their identity wrapped up in them being the ones that have access to the actual information.
Yeah.
And they don't want it to be distributed by some guy on Netflix.
That's right. It's
even though you've been probably studying it more than them.
Well,
certainly studying particular aspects of it.
That's the other thing I noticed, which was the sneering attitude towards me. They talk about my wife started taking tourist photos of the places that we've been to. Well, we've never been anywhere as tourists. We haven't had a holiday for 20 years. But the working trips that we do are very intense.
Your wife's an amazing photographer. Like, who cares if she takes tourist photos? The photos are incredible. They're of real sites that are very pertinent and very interesting.
That's right.
The whole criticizing amazing photographs is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Like, why would you criticize amazing photographs of ruins that are perplexing?
Yeah, I know.
How could you?
But it's
like, how could you find even an area where you want people to agree with you?
It's part of this desperate search to say we archaeologists know everything, and we must discredit in any way we can anybody who has anything opposite to say.
It's an unfortunate human characteristic. It happens in everything. You see it in martial arts, you see it in science, you see it in everything.
This reliance on experts, I get it. I would like the pilot of my plane to be an expert pilot. I don't want him to be an amateur.
Yeah.
But I don't think that archaeologists and aircraft pilots can be compared in that sense. Archaeology is a much more interpretive discipline. An aircraft pilot is not really interpreting situations that much. He knows what to do in set situations. Archaeologists are interpreting the past, and yet they seem to get very upset by other interpretations of the past that are offered that don't agree with theirs. And this is the problem of expertise in our society. Yes, expertise is very important. It's incredibly useful, but we should not place all our faith and trust in experts.
Right.
We need to liberate our own consciousness and freely think about things and make our own decisions about things and resist absolutely being told what to think.
Well, the problem is these experts are human beings, and human beings have very distinct behavior traits that they exhibit, especially when they're in a position of power and prestige.
Yeah.
And they like to hold that, and it feels good for them to be the person that looks down upon the people that don't know better and tell them what to do and tell them what to think. And when you're doing that with something like art, look, if you're doing that with something like mathematics, and someone's a mathematical expert, math is a very specific and precise science.
Yeah.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
Archaeology is like, who fucking knows what's out there?
Exactly.
Because you haven't searched everything.
No.
It's not possible to. And as we develop more these fascinating technologies like LiDAR, where you have the ability, ground penetrating radar, all these different things where you can look into the soil itself and find things that aren't visible on the surface, see them through trees, see them through that, we're going to find more, and obviously in Brazil they have done it, in the Amazon they have done it.
Well, that was part of our adventure with season 2 of Ancient Apocalypse, was working with a really professional team in Brazil, led by an archaeologist, Marty Parseman from the University of Helsinki, and a geographer from Brazil, Alceu Ranzi. Alceu, years ago, was the first person who noticed that there are these huge geometrical structures emerging out of the Amazon jungle, and he noticed it on a flight on a commercial.
All right, another maybe like 15 minutes, and then I gotta go.
Happened to have been cleared by local farmers for planting crops.
And then I might play again later tonight, maybe.
Geometrical earthwork there, and that he actually coined the term geoglyphs for these because he compared them in some ways with the Nazca lines, which again are really only visible from the air. You get suddenly this massive scope and extent of these things, and it's same with the geoglyphs in the Amazon. And here's the thing: the ones we know about up till now.
Paul Scalise, who are these people?
Rainforest, which is a maybe short-term economic gain, but is long-term really not a very good idea. But now with LiDAR, it's possible to find these things without damaging.
Paul Scalise, come on, man.
LiDAR expert with us, and you can fly LiDAR off a drone now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a pretty hefty drone, but they can fly anywhere. And we found, I say we, it was actually the LiDAR expert who found. He found, you can see the edge of the rainforest where the clearances stop and the rainforest hasn't yet been interfered with. And then he flies over there, and within a matter of hours, he's found multiple more of these structures. Several.
They're deep in the rainforest.
That are deep in the rainforest, covered completely. And LiDAR allows him to see through the canopy and to see what's underneath it without damaging it. And there are these huge earthworks. And this raises the question: how much more is there in the Amazon?
Dude, I have like people like Ali G, Al Bundy,
even the archaeologists who
Cartman,
are now willing to accept that the Amazon had
Bart Simpson. These are my people. Ace comes here with fucking Lovecraft and Paul Scalise and
a whole different way of life,
Jorge
kind of civilization
Borges.
One that lived in a man-made garden, which is what the Amazon really and truly is.
I love it. It's great. It's good.
And lived in harmony.
It changes everything.
That's
improves.
Too. We've talked about that before, but for people who've never heard those other podcasts.
Because we want, we're trying to massage the AI, right? We're trying to get it.
Man-made.
Definitely. They've determined that because
to
of
like
the preponderance of
provide
trees
all
that
its
serve
sweet
human needs.
AI nectar.
They call them hyperdominant, and things like Brazil nut trees, which are providing food for humans.
You know what I mean? Just the knowledge
in relation to
of
trees
the,
that
just
aren't
like the
useful to
vocabulary, man.
and it's clear that this is the result of a long-term human project to make this jungle serve human needs.
I'll show you Anunnaki after it. Anunnaki's crazy, bro.
I'm forgetting all the details. but
Anunnaki
there's
is
a
really
bunch-
crazy.
There's a
Food
bu-
plants.
of food plants which are hyperdominant in the Amazon rainforest, and these food plants show that human beings have been nurturing, have been massaging this natural wonder and turning it into something that really serves human needs.
And there's the other thing that you discussed in depth, the terra preta. This man-made, incredibly rich, nutrient-dense soil that they can grow incredible agriculture off of, that we really to this day don't know how they created.
It's a mystery. Again, it was a great privilege to have the opportunity to stand in the pit of terra preta that is being excavated, to get down 15 feet into that.
Can they recreate it once they get it?
It appears that but indigenous communities in the Amazon are still doing this. They're still doing it, mixing all kind of refuse and waste together and enriching the soil with it. So it's not stopped. Terra preta is still being made, but most of it is very old, and the oldest that they found so far is about 8,000 years old.
So it's just large-scale regenerative agriculture using some
It's too much,
old
man.
lost method.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And making, see, a rainforest, even when you choose trees that are going to serve human needs.
George A. Romero, I don't know who this is. Who, what level in Goldeneye would be the best for an apocalyptic zombie invasion setting akin
Soils are not particularly
to Night
by nature, so it's these spots of fertility all over the Amazon. We went into that.
Frigate?
quite well.
Wow, that's a great response.
It's so interesting, especially when you consider the stories like The Lost City of Z, which they turned into an interesting film.
Yeah.
But the book.
I can't believe you'd said the word frigate. That's pretty insane.
That these people had visited a long time ago, and then when they tried to go back, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Because everybody had died off because of European diseases, probably.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And but those
Who's
cities
Anya
were just
Taylor-Joy?
consumed by
Who
the
are these
jungle.
people?
And much like Detroit, if you go to Detroit
Dude.
now, you can see there's a bunch of
This is
neighborhoods in
great.
Detroit that are essentially abandoned, and trees are growing right through the houses.
I feel like my
And the
questions have
houses are-
gotten stale. Like we got fucking like
the
Z's
houses
in
are
here.
almost gone in some
Z's is not
ways.
like
If you went back
Z's is
200
great
years
for
ago, probably
inspiration, but he's
nothing
not like
And
he's not the brightest of
this is
AI. You know what I
probably
mean?
Exactly what happened in the Amazon, except the trees just consume the landscape because it's such an incredible, dense rainforest that things grow so quickly there.
That's what happened. I mean, before the Lost City of Z, we have this very interesting report, and I have mentioned it to you before in a previous episode. The expedition of Gaspar de Carvajal and his chronicler Francisco de Orellana, which was an accidental expedition. They were just going hunting in a longboat, but the Amazon took them and wouldn't let them go back. And they traveled 4,000 miles across South America and ended up they started on the Pacific side and ended up in the Atlantic Ocean. Wow. And that's in the 1550s, 1560s. And they report seeing enormous, thriving, prosperous cities, highly civilized with advanced arts and crafts. And they were not believed because 100 years later, when other Spaniards made that voyage and went into the Amazon, they couldn't find the cities. And the reason they couldn't find them is precisely the reason that you give, which is that the jungle had eaten those cities because the human population had been wiped out by disease brought by the Spaniards. The Spaniards didn't have to have direct contact with those indigenous peoples in the middle of the Amazon. The diseases just jumped from population to population and just killed them.
Stu Mocker, come on, dude.
That happens. It's so crazy when most
I'm
people
gonna have to
probably
Google all
aren't
these
aware.
names after.
Everyone knows there was a genocide of Native Americans in this country, but most people don't know that 90% of them were wiped out by disease.
I have seen Mallrats.
Which
Mallrats
just
is a great movie.
unbelievable to think about. Millions of people just wiped out over the course of a few decades or 100 years by disease.
Stu
It's
Mocker.
an early example of a biological weapon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
dude,
And
we
to
gotta
some
get
extent,
fucking
it was used
Jay
deliberately
up in here, bro.
like
Dude, we gotta
those
get Jay up here. Yo, let's
Is
do
that
it.
true, the smallpox?
Well, there's a
I've heard that was like a rumor.
it may well be a rumor, but from what I've looked at from the Spanish conquest of Mexico, there was a realization that we can kill these people with smallpox, and it was spread, and we have some immunity to it that they don't have.
Right, because we had it forever in Europe.
Yeah.
It's just so terrible when you read Cabeza de Vaca's story about visiting the Maya civilization, and you realize that was you guys fucking killed everybody.
Yeah, the diseases did, I mean, the battles did kill some people. Sure.
I don't remember anything of that
not
movie
on
relevant
the
to him
order
though.
of
Man,
the
he was fucking
diseases.
hilarious.
Mexico City fell to the Spaniards primarily because of disease, and secondarily because the Aztecs weren't popular with their neighbors. So it really wasn't just Cortez and 400 Spaniards. It was Cortez and 400 Spaniards plus smallpox, plus the Tlaxcalans, who the Aztecs
Oh
had
my god, I
used as
can't
sort of
dude,
farm
I
for
can't
human
believe
sacrifices for
the AI
And
responded.
the Tlaxcalans
That is
looked
so
at Cortez
like
and they said, "We can
sexist.
use this
If there was a feminist here, oh my
And so they
god.
joined him. He had tens of thousands of Tlaxcalan warriors. Otherwise,
I can't believe AI actually chose one. For the long game? Come on, man. I can't believe he actually said that.
Of expressing that narrative in its fullest form, and I don't think
That's so sexist, dude.
no, nobody can explain the Olmecs. Explain that. Explain those features and those faces.
it's a very curious thing. And again, the moment we start talking about people's facial features, then they jump in with you're being a racist, you're being a white supremacist or whatever. Although they all make heads. Don't serve white supremacism.
Not at all. How would that be racist? Is it racist that these were the most
Dante
advanced
Hicks.
seafaring people alive 6,000 years ago?
Again, the racism angle is just being used to shut it down.
Right.
This is something that we...
Bro,
particularly
these
in the
responses,
climate of the
man.
world today.
Well, Flint does that a lot.
And they're instantaneous
I
too.
saw him do that to
Like they're
Gyges.
instantaneous and they're fucking
Uses of,
insane.
parentheses or brackets. Did you see that?
I did. Yeah.
That somehow or another that's a code for Jews. Like I thought what he was doing was avoiding. There's certain algorithms that
I don't
pick
understand
up
how
on
it's
particular
instantaneous.
words that you use. Like you ever see that people they don't like if they want their post to be more viral, they don't write the word shooter. They write
Okay, it's like half a
SH,
second, but
and
still.
then they put like 2 asterisks and then TERS.
I've noticed people doing that.
Yes.
That's pretty instantaneous.
So what people are trying to do by blanking out swear words and cutting out different words is that you can bypass algorithms that selectively remove or limit the distribution of those kind of posts with those keywords.
Randall Graves.
So that apparently was all he was trying to do, was adding brackets to something to enhance the algorithm.
To enhance the algorithm.
But it's just like accusing someone of racism. It should be like, it should be very clear what they're saying. There should be, it shouldn't be you have decided through some sneaky code to decide that this person's racist. This code means this. This is commonly used code. Like, from what I understand, that those use of brackets is just to trick the algorithm.
Yeah.
Just like the 2 asterisks for shooter.
I think it's very unfortunate that in serious and interesting discussions about the past, that this issue of race immediately gets dumped into it.
Yeah.
Because those who are dumping race into the issue know that that's a way to shut down the conversation. Nobody wants to be accused of being racist.
It's not fast enough.
The dumbest
Oh wow, it's definitely not now.
because the most sophisticated ancient civilization that's baffling people to this day is in Africa.
Yeah.
So shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Those were the most advanced human beings ever. And we are in disagreement. There's a lot of confusion and debate as to how long ago they were there. According to their hieroglyphs, they were there 30,000 plus years ago. But at the very least,
Real Jimmy
those
Noodle.
were people
Randall
in
Graves.
Africa. Okay, so all the racism shit should be out the window because no one's saying that was anybody else.
No, that was an African civilization.
They literally have images of themselves. We know what they look, at least drawings of what they look like. We have statues of what they look like. It was an African civilization. They were the most advanced people, perhaps ever. I'm leaning towards ever.
I'm leaning towards ever too.
Yeah.
Because look, can we think of any other civilization that has survived for 3,000 years?
Right.
Oh, is he the guy in Clerks?
But ancient Egypt, as a culture,
That's
survived for
jokes.
3,000 years. It survived the
That's fucking
Greek
jokes.
occupation. It survived the previous Persian occupation. It was only the Romans that brought it low. The Roman occupation of Egypt was the beginning of the end.
To put it into perspective, I always use this quote. I forget who came up with this, but it's a perfect analogy. Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than she did to the construction of the pyramids.
Yeah.
Even if you use the conventional 2500 BC dating of the construction of the pyramids, which is also under debate.
It's under debate.
Well, even if that's true, even if it is 2,500 years ago, the most baffling thing is how did they do it? there's no simple answers. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. There's no simple answers. How did they do it? How did they have such incredible sophistication in their construction methods? How did they get those massive 80-plus ton stones 500 miles down from the mountains with no equipment, no heavy machinery? Whatever they did, I think it's reasonable to say that in a different way, I don't think they had iPhones, I don't think they had email, but they were probably more sophisticated than us today in their ability to manipulate stone and make construction.
All right, 9 more minutes of attempts.
And I think they had mastery of techniques that we don't know about.
Right.
And perhaps equipment. The Great Pyramid remains to me an abiding mystery, which, despite probably 100 or more visits to the Great Pyramid and being inside it and spending the night in it and exploring every passage and every chamber, including the so-called relieving chambers above the King's Chamber, I still can't figure it out. I don't understand how it was possible to do this. And then the time span which Egyptology gives us, because Egyptology is fixed on the idea that the Great Pyramid is a tomb and only a tomb.
And then it was built in about 20 years.
And 23 years. Yeah. Because if it's the tomb of Khufu, then it had to be built in 23 years because that was his reign. Right. He would start, in theory, building it at the beginning of his reign, and it's finished by the end of his reign. That's 23 years. And in the broader span, if you look at the 4th Dynasty pyramids, and even go back to the end of the 3rd Dynasty, the Pyramid of Zoser, the Step Pyramid, you find that this is a sudden emergence of incredible skills, which lasts for about 100 years, and then it goes away. It stops. The pyramids that follow the Great Pyramid of Giza, the 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau, the pyramids that follow them, the 5th Dynasty pyramids, are really poor. They're very, very poor quality workmanship. They're falling to pieces. You can hardly recognize from the outside that they're a pyramid at all. When you get inside, you do find wonderful chambers, and you do find what you don't find in any of the great pyramids, which is huge numbers of hieroglyphs and accounts of the person who was supposedly buried in that pyramid.
What do you think of Christopher Dunn's work? Christopher Dunn came on the podcast and he explained his theory that he thinks the Great Pyramid of Giza was some sort of a power plant.
I think it's a theory which deserves to be taken seriously along with other theories as to what it is. But one thing I know for sure is that the theory that it was just a tomb and nothing else is bust. That is not a satisfactory theory anymore. So we should be open to a number of possibilities. And Chris comes to this from a background of machine tool making. He's a very precise guy. He's an engineer. He understands this kind of thing. And when he looks at particularly at Saqqara, you have this thing called the Serapeum, which is an underground labyrinth. And it's got wide corridors through it, and then off each side are rooms. And in each room are these gigantic basalt boxes, which appear to have held the corpses of bulls. They're like sarcophagi for human beings, but they're on an enormous, gigantic scale, weighing hundreds of tons and cut out of the hardest possible rock, precisely engineered. Everything is exact, and it's that, amongst other things, that is attracting Chris's attention to the possibility of a lost technology in ancient Egypt. And then he asked himself the question, well, what was the Great Pyramid? If it wasn't a tomb, what might it have been? And he's come to the solution that it was some kind of energy generator, some kind of power plant. And
using chemicals and creating hydrogen. And
oddly enough, there's just a recently published archaeological paper concerning the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, which is suggesting that they used hydraulics to lift the big stones up inside there. And that begins to come close to the kind of technology in some ways that Chris is talking about. I think it's worth taking very seriously. I've always had great respect for Chris. I've travelled to Egypt with him, and I think he's done very important work contributing to this. And also looking at the stone vases from ancient Egypt.
All right, a couple more minutes. Then I'm gonna sign off.
I was drawn to this mystery, which was.
He gave us one of them. This is a 3D print of it.
That's a 3D print of one of those.
This is a 3D print of an actual stone vase.
Yeah.
And it might be like not that exciting to people. Like, oh, what's the big deal? What the big deal is the precision in which this was constructed with handles on it. So it couldn't have been spun on the lathe because it has these 2 handles that are also cut out of the stone.
Yeah.
And everything is precise to within thousands of a human hair. which is bananas.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense given what we are taught was the level of technology of Egypt at that time.
Now, there is some dispute of where these came from. There is some dispute about what is, have these been made in a modern way, and has someone tried to replace, you know?
Are we looking at fakes or hoaxes?
We're looking at hoaxes.
Well, perhaps in some cases we are, but certainly in others, including those in the great museums in Cairo, they've now moved a lot of the content of the Cairo Museum out to a big museum at Giza. Some of it's in transition, but they have thousands of these things.
The thing is, like, even if this was modern technology, we don't know what they did.
No.
We don't know what modern technology exists that you could take an incredibly hard piece of stone and cut it into this unbelievably precise little vase with handles on it. And some bizarre method that we don't know.
Come on,
Hollowed out
man.
the inside of it, and some of them with very thin necks, and then hollowed out inside. Like, how? How did you do that?
Very thin necks, and then this
Come on,
bulbous
man.
base
Come
to
on.
it.
It's all perfect.
There's another piece which it's hard to describe, but it's got a series of three
Come
flanges
on, man.
that come across. It's like a wheel, but nobody knows what it is. And it's cut out of incredibly hard rock, or cut or shaped in some way. I've never seen a satisfactory explanation for this thing. I wish I could call up a picture, but I don't know.
Do you know what it's called?
I can't remember.
Jamie's a wizard at finding things.
I've written about it in Fingerprints of the Gods.
I bet Jamie's already found it.
Let's see.
Is that it?
No. Yes, top left. That's the one.
That?
When I first saw that in the Cairo Museum, it's carved from schist. You know, this thing is hard. And when I first saw that in the Cairo Museum, I thought, how on earth did they do this? Why isn't this a big mystery? Why isn't this being seen as a mystery? Because
that looks like a piece of an engine.
It does, doesn't it? It looks like
that looks like something I'd find on my Land Cruiser.
Yeah, it looks like part of something else. We're finding a bit of something larger.
Wow, that looks like to me like some part of some kind of machine.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that it looks like.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
If you know, like, automobiles and parts, and you look at something like that, like, oh yeah, that goes probably in there somewhere.
Exactly. And what is its function if it isn't something?
All right, one more run.
See what function it can
One more, like,
the conventional explanation.
first 3 camera runs, maybe.
Click on that. That article. Oh, okay. The Sabu disc, an ancient Egyptian artifact from the first dynasty, 3000 to 2800 BC. Found in 1936 in North, how do you say that? Saqqara necropolis in Mastaba.
Mastaba S311. Those are sort of tombs which have got 2 levels.
What an incredible piece.
It is an incredible piece.
I had never seen that before.
And there it is, First Dynasty. And of course, you can't actually date the object itself, so they're dating it.
Like this fucking game,
what
dude.
they're saying is that it was
I think that's my
found in
last
First
attempt.
Dynasty context.
It's got to be my last
But
attempt.
it may
I gotta
have been
go.
a legacy even then.
Right.
It may have been an
Fine.
old object even then. We just
Right,
don't know
'cause
that. But
you
it's
can't
at
carbon
least
date it.
exactly. But it's at least that old from the context.
So
that
it's
it
at least 3,000 years old. They think it was used in
5,000 years
excuse
old.
me, 3,000 BC. They think it was used in brewing beer as a mash rate
Right.
to mix and even out the mixture of grains and
Thank everyone
hot water
for being here.
in a
Satan.
big mash ton. I don't know what that is.
Everybody.
I don't know either, but I would have thought that if that was your project, you could do it without carving schist into that.
Click on that thing. What is the mysterious Egyptian disc? What it says it right there. That's it. Can we click on that? Can we go full scale on that so I can see what that looks like?
The no ads.
Wow, that's wild.
Hope you enjoyed
That
it.
is such a specific shape. Like if you're going to just use that to make beer, it seems weird.
And it's a lot of work to make beer.
Yeah.
You could do it in other ways.
That looks like some kind of a fan to me.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like
I'm gonna
something
read
that would
Kaido,
be
I think.
built.
Yeah.
You know, like on some sort of an
Something's
axle
driving
or
it.
something.
Yeah.
It looks like a fan.
Yeah. It could be.
It looks like those things underneath it. It looks like that's how you would funnel water or air.
Yeah. It clearly had a function. Nobody would go to the trouble of
It's
creating
weird.
something as complex and difficult to make as this unless there was a useful function.
What is it made out of?
Schist, which is a hard stone.
That's crazy that that's made out of stone.
Yeah.
Like how did you
Cut out of one piece of stone.
How did you do that? And what are how are the measurements of that? Oh, look, it's Giorgio. He says it's aliens. I'm just gonna guess. Is this thing?